All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'd like to call the Laekville Select Board meeting to order at 5:31 p.m. on Thursday, the 25th, 5:30 at the Laekville Senior Center. Tonight is our third meeting with our department heads, so we'll be wrapping it up this evening, and so we have some attendees tonight that I'm looking forward to hearing from. We also have our Finance Committee here this evening. Lakeville's recording. Is there anybody else recording the meeting this evening? Okay, hearing none. Would you do your thing?
Okay. Good evening, I'm Christopher Plunker, Finance Committee Chair. I'm calling this meeting to order again on April 25th. It's now 6:32. And in attendance to my left is Barbara Mankowski. I'm Christopher Plunker. To my right is Michael Wright. And then sitting next to him is Mr. Darren Beals. I don't believe we have Larry on the line. We were unsuccessful with the...
The meeting's open, he's not on right now.
Okay. He was questionable whether he could make these out of town, so... Okay, thank you.
I'll let you know if I see him up on.
Thank you.
And the Lakeville Select Board is in full force here tonight, so we're looking forward to hearing your presentations. So I am going to I had a request to move the Planning Department up first because they have a meeting at 6 that they're going to attend, so page 27. Page 27. Are you in session?
No, I can, I'll call the meeting of the Lakeland Planning Board to order. It is 5:32 p.m., Thursday, April 25th, 2024, and we're meeting at the COA. And we do have a quorum. The only person missing is Jack.
Madam Chair? Yes. Could we get names, please, for the planning board members since they're new?
Oh,
Sure,
absolutely,
we have
please.
John Cabral, Dan Wilga, and David Lodge.
And welcome, everybody. Congratulations.
Yes.
Okay, would you like to begin and walk us through where we're at right now as far as the planning department is?
Okay, so Dan was nice enough to draw up a letter that expresses what we had discussed at our last meeting, which was to take the amount that had been set aside in the budget for a town planner and use that money towards a part-time coordinator position, as well as using part of that fund for a consultant. And we were hoping to get 2 consultants, that we could use one as a main consultant, have one on the back burner in case we need someone else in a pinch. So that is, in a nutshell, what that request was.
Okay. And as far as the rest of your budget is concerned from from FY24, I'm seeing that there's just the contractual increases here under the salary lines, and everything else looks like it's pretty consistent. So outside of the position and holding that here, is there anything else that the planning board was looking to bring on into the budget for next year?
No, nothing else at this time.
Madam Chair?
Yes, please.
Mr. Nunes, did you, with their request in the budget, did you take the funds out of insurance and benefits for what was a full-time position?
No.
Okay.
I haven't done anything yet. We're going to talk about that probably at the end of budget meetings. But I do have a question, if I may. So the part-time position, do you have a general idea of what the salary would be? And as far as the engineers, wouldn't it be the peer review, the developer pay the fee for the engineers?
Right, we do use a lot of times environmental partners for
Yeah,
peer review.
yeah.
But this would be something, I think, that would be more specialized, I guess, for certain situations to have, because if we're kind of lacking that town planner advice, because we're kind of downgrading to a coordinator who's more going to handle like day-to-day communications, as well as the most important part, which is handling those subsidized housing units. I think we need to have somebody specifically in-house to do that and keep track of that. So that was why we, we discussed having somebody in-house and, to fill that role, but to have a consultant for more along the lines of like advice. We have a new board,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
something along those lines.
Okay.
And actually, Lorraine, now that I know you asked about foreseeing anything in the budget, the only thing I could think of additional would be for training. So if anyone on the board was interested in training to take some courses or classes through the Mass Planning Association, whatever the,
In addition to the 1,000 that was already earmarked for that?
well, I don't know how much, I guess I don't know how much it costs. But so would that cover it for?
I'm not sure.
It depends, because this, you've got a Serpent training that's available. Usually that's, I think that's free, that you can sign up and attend.
Okay.
And then it's the Citizen Planning Collaborative, right? And those are a little bit more involved, more intense. So there might be some cost associated, but I would just say, just kind of keep track of it. I mean, we know, what you have allotted here in your budget, and if there's ever a need to transfer because of training, at a town meeting, we certainly could, even look at that, but,
I have another question, Madam Chair. Actually,
Yeah.
Mr. Nunes had one first. I will let you go.
So are you, we would need what you are recommending for a salary
Okay.
for the part-time position and what you would want for the engineers. Are you thinking of using the entirety, the 89,604?
So I was thinking I don't think we discussed did we say a
We
salary?
didn't necessarily discuss an amount, no.
So,
So I think the board would want some guidance, I would think. Right, we're not gonna throw a
Yeah.
number out there, and I think we'd wanna hear it from the board.
right.
And my question had a little bit along that lines. Are we expecting an increase in representation or needs from our legal team because we won't have an in-house planner?
That
Just
was my question.
Yeah, just in order to, all of us, legal stuff. Yeah, so I would assume, because we don't have that professional planner role, that there would be at least a small increase in what we're expecting for legal, for the planning board specifically.
As its own separate line item.
Well, actually, we don't have it as a separate line item.
We
now.
really should.
Yeah, we currently put it in, so it would be an overall line item. We could always discuss that for next year about separating things out, but.
Madam Chair, let me ask it in a different
Different way,
way,
yes.
the way I was, so we do have, like, at the zoning board meetings, they do have a lawyer present many times just to help them with that whole legal component. Is that what you're looking for a consultant to help you with? Or, in which
Potentially.
case, maybe we could just switch the funds to a legal line item so that you could have legal representation at each meeting or the meetings that you need them to? Or is it like I don't know, a general advisor,
Yeah,
let's say?
I think, well, my thought was that a consultant would probably be not as costly as a town council attending the meeting, so that I thought it would be a better option to,
Madam Chair, can I ask a couple of questions as follow-up? So having served on the planning board, in my opinion, this is a really good decision because what this town needs are a couple different things. First of all, land use was never properly understood by the prior planner that we had. And I don't think actually the legal specialists that we've had involved are specialists in land use either. So I do think that having a consultant, and I calculated what I roughly think it's going to be. I think you're going to be somewhere between 45 and 55 based on a standard hourly rate in a limited period of time for that position. Also, they're going to have some additional fees other than just their hourly rate. And that's very distinct from legal advice.
Did you need $45 per hour?
Oh, I think I was much higher than that.
Or you're
Yeah.
talking about $45,000 per year?
Yeah, 45 to 55,000 per year for a consultant is what I'm thinking it would run, just based on the things that we worked on. And I know you guys have some more stuff coming in. It's also nice to have an additional consultant that you could bring in for different kinds of questions. So there's the land use side, which is really important, but there's also some strategy, right? And getting the input, when we talked about hiring a town planner before, it's really important that we talk with people from other communities that have seen other things going on. And when we're siloed here in just Lakeville, we're missing that opportunity to gain additional information. So I'm in big support of that. I think we could both save the town money and get better services as well. The only other comment that I would add to that is that it has always bothered me that we did not have a legal line item for planning board, because for those of us that are sitting there, we don't know how much, we're asking questions all the time of town council, but is that really the best use of the money? Because in most cases, that would be better spent with a consultant getting a land use recommendation.
It's definitely a good question. I know that we had moved all of our legal expenses under the select board's umbrella, and we all use that pot. But when we get our invoices, it's definitely broken down. So we know what was expended on planning, we know what was expended on ZBA and other projects in town. So we're able to keep track of that. So we can certainly go back and look and maybe see what the trend was for the last year of how much was expended through planning board.
Madam Chair? Brian, was your question similar, or did you have a different?
No, I was just going to ask the exact same thing that the two of you were, was whether or not that was additional representation by town council, because that has worked very well for ZBA in giving them support when they had new members. And you can easily look and see, roughly how many meetings a year you have. Do we think it'd be 50% of the time, 25% of the time, and try to figure out a number, and then maybe it's a combination of that into a legal pool and then something else for contracted services. I don't know that we want to pin ourselves to like one contractor or not, depending on what the needs are. But I admit I don't know enough about the area to give a recommendation.
I think, well, from what I've looked at, they do seem to have firms that have associates that are familiar with all different aspects of planning.
Yeah, you may want to consider, if we go that route, is to also ensure that they're willing to give a waiver that they wouldn't be coming before and committee in town.
Right, oh, absolutely, yeah.
Just
No,
to-
nothing conflicting. And I do just, Madam Chair, for the record, Jack did arrive to our meetings.
Madam Chair, I just have to ask, so why would we do it this way versus just hiring a new town planner?
Oh,
Who could provide some legal help, who could also provide some, knowledge? I'm just not sure.
So I think, like we discussed, it was, to say the least, very disappointing. Very disappointing, the kind of communication that we got, the kind of input that we got, the fact that there was so little paper trail for a lot of major discussions. It was because of that, and because I see it more now, like I was excited to bring on a town planner. I thought, this is great, we can have someone to bring us in the direction we want to go. But if you're missing the component of understanding and listening to the residents, what that direction is, I think they could take us in a very, I don't want to say dangerous direction, but for lack of a better term, they can just take us in the opposite direction than we would like to see ourselves going, I think. That's my fear, is that could happen again.
So do you think that's more to do with just an individual hire issue? Or is it more to do with the way it was structured as a reporting structure? Because I see that being problematic, that it was reporting in through the town administrator as opposed to directly to the planning board, because how can you hold someone accountable that does not report to you in any fashion?
Those two items, definitely, but I think a third item is, the more that I started talking about this role, it sounds like that's kind of the industry standard, is to be more on the promote development rather than, protect rural. So I think even the role itself is probably leaning in that direction rather than in
Can I add something else to response, Maureen? When we were working on the Lakeville Hospital site, we had both ample legal representation, and eventually we had a town planner that came along, I think, shortly thereafter. There was limited creativity, okay, because number one, you're relying, when you hire somebody, it's based on the experiences that they've had professionally. And then they become an employee of the town, which, if it's not working out, becomes much more difficult. I always felt that, and recommended this, in fact, before we hired a planner, that we consider engaging a consultant, because the consultant will be coming from a firm that has a wide variety of experiences throughout the Commonwealth and can guide us based on our needs, not their perception politically of where we should be. We are a community from the very beginning of time that I've been around in Lakeville, which is not the beginning of time, but it's been a long time. The surveys that the public gives us every year say they want to maintain the rural character of the town, right? The people that work for the town need to understand that message, because that's really what everybody wants. So if we have a consultant that comes in that could be gone tomorrow, if they're not giving us the appropriate creativity and protections and advice, then we just move on to another consultant. And perhaps through experimenting with consultants, we would find a permanent employee that might be a nice fit.
Then my only concern is echoing, just what kind of hours, what kind of cost per hour are we looking at? What kind of increased legal, and what kind of services? Because we don't want to create a model where we're paying more than what our budget line has now. We want to, create some room, some breathing room.
Absolutely, yeah. And that was
Yes,
the
Barbara.
hope.
So following up on what Barbara said, I think it would also be
So-
important for us to define what it means to be a rural community. I think that some people might think rural and just think I drive by fields on my way to work. Whereas when I think of rural, I think of educating and providing for our people and our children ways that they can be enmeshed in nature and immersed in nature and learn to understand and appreciate and want to protect nature. That's what's rural to me. So I think as part of this, we need to define what it means to live in a semi-rural community. And then the only other real question I have about this is why it's receiving a 3% increase when there is nobody filling the position. And I feel like it should be at what the base salary for the new town planner would be, as opposed to a position receiving a yearly increase that's vacant. Because if we hire someone next year, it's going to be 3% on top of that, correct? Not what they're starting with. So I remember our conversation with the town clerk, who hasn't received anything in quite a while, and this seems odd to me, but I don't know if it's one of those procedures that I'm just not aware of.
Please.
Yes, the planner's position received a 3% increase. It was a non-union position, like all other non-union positions. So, obviously it's up to the select board and the finance committee what they want to do. But I just put it in because it's a non-union position.
Okay.
All right.
Yes, Jack?
Yeah, I would think that going the direction of the town planning would be preferable. I think we need buy-in. I don't think you're going to get the full buy-in from the consultants. I've dealt with many consultants over my career, but I would think it's preferable to find an individual. First of all, let's put together the job description. And I think we have to clearly delineate that we want communication, that they have to report to the planning board or whomever. But, because I don't think we really, Mark was wonderful, nice guy, but we didn't get what we wanted out of him. We need him to go into the different committees and the different boards, and there's got to be we have to clearly emphasize we want interaction between him and the boards in communicating back to us, getting the reports we need, because that's what I think we'll all agree we did not get. And I'm not so sure we're going to get that buy-in. We want him to he's working for the town, buy into the town, and then report the way we want, and have him report directly to Michelle as to what's going on. And I think that's what we need to do rather than consultant.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think, I just call it what it is. I think there's a lot of, sour taste in people's mouths over what happened over the past couple of years, and if that hadn't been the case, we might not be having this discussion. And I don't want to get too far off the track of the budget, but what, Bruna said, I think, holds a lot of value is we constantly hear maintain the rural character. We've never defined what that means in this town. The same people say they want the tax rate to remain as low as it can be, but those are kind of two almost polar opposites. we're already at a point now where this budget barely stretches us by on fixed cost increases. So there's got to be a give somewhere. We either open up our wallets and keep paying for things to keep, pastures and single-family homes, or we come up with what people in town also like to call responsible development, right? We got to figure out what that means, because this is not going to maintain ourselves over the next few years if we keep seeing this as is. I think it's a wonderful proposition. I don't know if you'd also envision maybe this person taking on some of the conservation agent roles as well. We're starting to get a lot of part-time people. Are we really focusing on utilizing everybody?
I know we didn't discuss it, but I personally wouldn't mind seeing this be a combined role, a coordinator / conservation, or whatever makes sense.
Yeah.
This is just, planning board's point of view, what we see as our need
I
as,
think very valid.
planning to.
Madam Chair, I'm just worried for that exact point, that we're gonna run out of money paying a consultant if all of a sudden we're like, oh yeah, that would be great if you could do that too. So I don't wanna set us up for failure and not have enough money to continue paying that person, especially if they're doing really good work. Whereas someone that's on salary is on salary. So providing, they expected to go to meetings, expected to interact with other committees, expected to do all that stuff, whereas when you're getting, a consultant, you're paying them per, and I just don't want to run out of money. That's the only thing.
I wouldn't expect them to attend every meeting. I think it would be more on a as-needed basis.
You can also set them up as a retainer, so that there's a cap, there's an expected hourly, rate, and then there's a cap, so you're watching that budget throughout the year.
Madam Chair, has the board, has the board explored ever having a shared position with another town?
Not recently. I know at some point we may have discussed it prior to the town planner or talked about it a while ago now, but not recently. But like I said, this was intended to be what we see as our need, and do with it what you will. If that means changing it to something that works better for the town in general, for a shared position, a combined role.
No, I appreciate you thinking out of the box. I mean, this is,
something like that.
like you're trying to figure what's going to work.
Exactly, but I do hate to say, but it's, we do have to run, we have a 6 o'clock public hearing,
sorry.
so.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna adjourn.
And when would you need that budget line item by?
Earlier next week.
Early next week?
Motion to recess or whatever.
Second.
Aye.
All in favor? All right, thank you.
All right, thanks for coming.
Good night.
Okay, where are we going next? Any other special requests?
I had no other special requests.
Okay, so if you're gonna go to police, it's 29.
All right, I'd like to invite our police chief up to the table. 29, you said, Leah? Good evening. All right, Chief, would you like to walk us through?
Sure. You have the police department FY25 budget. It is just contractual obligations. There's nothing new in the budget. Those obligations total 4.9% increase. If you look at the budget, you'll notice that there are some numbers that look probably a little higher than other ones. And if you're not aware, my FY24 budget wasn't fully funded because the police union hadn't had a contract with the town. So these numbers in FY25, they represent 2-year increases from FY24 and FY25, and that also includes non-union personnel, the dispatchers and the administrative assistant. Some of the other numbers that you'll see is like the 35% increase in educate or career incentive. That has to do with a couple new degrees that came online. Police officers are, through their contract, they have an incentive to have a degree, so that's what that increase is for. Other than that, that's pretty much it, but I'll entertain any questions.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So it looks like we're staying the same at the 138 for overtime?
Yes.
Is that okay?
So I did try to do enhancements for overtime. As you can see, my actual budgets have been a little higher in the regular overtime and also training overtime. But I do make up for those differences in other areas of my budget. Court overtime since 2020 has been down, so I have a little extra there.
Okay. It's just, I know what the contract is more.
Yeah,
There's some increases, so overtime's gonna be affected, so.
You get a 3% raise, but it doesn't reflect in the overtime.
Okay.
Overtime is low, but, you know, I have the ability to control my overtime. In the winter, we don't backfill all the shifts. In 2023, we were short of the 3 shifts per day, 252 shifts were actually short, and that's how I save and control fluctuations in my budget.
Okay. And it looks like you had the captain line went up, so it looks like there was a promotion. Was that what it is?
So.
And the
you
lieutenant
might have
line went
I don't know
down?
which version you had. There was one.
Oh, okay. All right.
There was one, the captain line and the lieutenant line got
Okay.
inverted.
Oh, okay.
The
So
new-
that's what that is?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Anybody else?
One quick question, if I may. Chief, can you just remind us how many cruises are you rotating out this year?
So two marked cruises and an unmarked, and that's what's on the capital.
All right, thank you.
And how many tasers? Isn't there tasers on
Yeah,
there too?
tasers on the capital, that funding will get us about 7 tasers.
15,000 for the tasers?
Yeah, I think it was 15, was that what it was?
Yeah.
1,000? Yeah.
I missed all of the total
For the-
tasers.
Someone asked me if it was for one. I was like,
They-
I don't think so.
They are expensive. Some of them, you know, every officer has their own taser, just like they have their own firearm. Some of them are breaking down, but what this will do is it gets rid of the older ones that are black, and we're gonna make sure that they're all yellow. I don't know if there's a
Yes.
trend across the country where officers are thinking they're tasing someone and they're actually using deadly force.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that we don't have, or we give them all the tools necessary to do their job and not to have any confusion in an intense situation.
Madam Chair, also, just one other, body cameras, all that stuff is up to date?
So
Where-
the body cameras it was all funded through a grant program. The program's working good, all our storage is good. Motorola is the company that we have. The version of body cameras that we're currently using will be obsolete in a year or two, so I'm doing something, another grant, just to update it. And the technology is just rapidly changing. So.
But that can be gotten through grant.
Yeah, there are grants out there for body cameras.
And they've proved worth their weight in gold.
Yeah.
Yes, they are.
Sure thing. Finance Committee?
I always have a question. As far as staffing, you're appropriately staffed right now. Do you have a line item here for the academy, what you guys have to spend in case you needed to hire somebody else or replace somebody?
Yeah, so the academy, there's no specific line for the academy. It would just be the patrolman. If we're backfilling a position, they would come out of patrolman salary. And then the cost of the academy just comes out of, it's a short cost that we pay that comes out of just professional contracting services.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Madam Chair? Chief, I know you had an enhancement request for 3 additional police officers. Was that figure all encompassing of startup costs as well, or would there be other
Yeah, so the enhancement I pressed was two police officers and one dispatcher. That was my enhancement. And that was, I think it broke it down, what was dispatcher and what was police officer.
Okay, there's a line item for one police/fire dispatcher, and then a line for 3 police officers.
Yeah, so that one, what did I see here? So there was, so that number for 3 police officers should be 2. So this was my enhancement. 1 police officer, step 1 with a bachelor's degree, 1 police officer, step 1 with a bachelor's degree, for the total of 124. So that has the correct total.
Just make it a
the wrong
2.
number.
Make it
So
2.
There was 3 positions total.
Gotcha. Okay, easy fix. Appreciate it.
Here.
Oh, there it is.
Okay.
But with that roughly then, that 124, would that get them everything they need to get on the?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So, through you, Madam Chair, we did approve the irrigation wells to be used for ARPA, through ARPA funds. And it looks like that's like an $8,000 line item on your budget. That'll be nice to,
Yes.
save going
Reclaim.
forward.
Yes. And then if you look at the actual cost from 2023, the last year was $5,056, and that was pretty much all irrigation, whereas if I'm just running the regular water, it's not even $50 a month. So
Yeah.
the big money comes in when you turn the irrigation on.
Yeah, that'll be nice to save that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe put it in some ways towards the building,
Heads up.
That was a great ask. Didn't even think of that.
I have one odd question, and it's on the internet. We get internet charges by building. Have we gone out at all on our internet to TMLP?
I'd have to check with Bob.
Yeah, we'll see.
Because I know they have favorable rates for municipalities.
We do pay TMLP. I know it's in the IT budget.
Yeah.
Because internet and cable services here, it's $1,100. Looks like it's been pretty consistent, but
Just having it by building, I didn't know if there was some
Savings
savings to be
to
had by
combine.
having everything combined.
I
That might
think
be-
we got a special rate through Comcast.
It's just a small thing,
Yeah.
but every penny.
Part of that per building cost might be due to the equipment they have to put at each building, and so there's the hardware and then the subscription itself. I don't know for sure.
the new IT committee will look into that and be able to report out.
Yeah. Good times.
Good times. All right, if nobody else has anything, I'd like to just quickly run through some of the accomplishments of the department. So for the past year, the Lakeville Police Department has maintained a news blog. The blog allows the department to quickly push out important public safety information, alerts, news releases, and community policing events over our social media platforms. In addition to the news blog, the Lakeville Police Department utilizes Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Lakeville Police Department has successfully demonstrated the use and need, which we discussed, for body-worn cameras in policing. After a year of full implementation, the cameras have proven successful, capturing evidence which aids in the prosecution of criminals while solidifying public trust. And the Lakeville Police Department applied for and received funding for the cameras through the Edward Bryan Memorial Grant, and the program is 100% grant funded. Community policing remains an important program, and the philosophy of partnering with the community is a proven method in crime reduction and the building of public trust. The police department conducts events like the Coffee with a Cop, where police officers meet the public for a cup of coffee to discuss any topic. In '23, the department participated at the Lions Club Fall Festival and 2 Trunk or Treats events. Engaging with the community in these types of settings is the definition of community policing. Another form of community policing is the participation in charitable events. In 23, members of the Lakeville Police Department participated in a polar plunge, benefiting the Special Olympics, and participated with the New England Patriots, benefiting the Coats for Vets initiative. So this continued community policing plans include plans for a Citizens Police Academy, which are in the works for 24. So,
Madam Chair,
excellent.
I think Brian and I, you were there, right, at the breakfast?
Yep.
They did a senior breakfast here,
yeah.
which was, I think, the first one since COVID, and it was packed. They donated all the food, they cooked all the
Labor,
food,
yeah.
they served all the food, and the chief actually did a phenomenal talk to the seniors, alerting them to a lot of the scams that are out there, and, you know, and it was just great because I know, you know, they were just walking up to them saying, oh, I saw this, and it just made it really, really great because it's such a comfortable place for them to walk up to. I think that was great, Chief, really was. Yep, yep. And breakfast was good too.
I just have another question, Lorraine. Do you happen to know if any of the the opioid settlement funds were distributed into towns like ours? And do they go to,
They actually, yes, we were just talked about that at one of our previous meetings. So did we receive the funding this past year?
Yeah, if I may.
Yes, please.
Madam Chair, so we receive about $10,000 annually. Unfortunately, last year, it went back into the general fund, but we are going to use these funds this year. It's about $10,000 for some medication, I guess, for that the fire department requested. I did have a meeting with Chief Perkins, Chief O'Brien, and Mr. Cullen from the Board of Health, and we all came to the conclusion that this would be the best use of the money. I think it's about $6,000. Chief, can you just maybe
Sure,
elaborate?
so $1,000 of that, I know the fire chief was talking about medication. $1,000 of that we would use, and we're part of, as a community of Lakeville and the Lakeville Police Department, we work with Plymouth County Outreach. And so we pay into that. We have officers who are assigned to go out with counselors to anybody who overdoses or anybody who's an at-risk person identified by a family member. We'll go out there with them in plain clothes, approach them, tell them how to get help, tell them about recovery, and give them different services. And that includes giving the family Narcan.
that's an amazing program. And for people that don't know, it's one of the reasons why Plymouth County has done so well with the opioids. I really attribute it.
So Plymouth County Outreach, how it was started, the model is being brought nationally. So they're modeling the Plymouth County Outreach model and how it's done with the police departments and partnering with the police to get the, education and Narcan and stuff out there to the community is kind of going across the country. So it's very successful.
All right. Well, Chief, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chief.
So we don't have a cemetery yet.
Right, so assessors.
Assessors is page 15. And the new talk.
Mr. LaFrere, would you like to join us? Sure. Nice.
Page 17,
15. I
or
believe.
16 for the cover sheet, thanks.
It'll be pretty plain and simple, hopefully.
All right, would you like to walk us through it?
It's going to be a short walk, I think. So the payroll line item is down 28.8%, and that has to do with changing of the staffing. Our clerk is now full-time, and our assessment specialist, who's the field clerk, is now part-time. Because of that change, the salaries have dropped drastically. And of all the expenses, we've cut back on everything we can. The only increases come from some of our contractual obligations, which mean a 5.5% increase in expenses, but the net overall is we are down 10.8% going into FY25. I'll entertain any questions.
Madam Chair?
Yeah, sure.
Where are we at with the, what year, I guess I should say, on the consulting services with our RG? Are we,
Contracts coming up.
contract, it is coming up?
This year?
Yes,
Okay,
this is the final year.
December 30th, I believe, right?
Right, yeah.
yeah,
December 30th.
okay. And is it, have you guys discussed that whether you're going to keep it, try to hire a principal assessor?
We're in that process right now
Okay.
of taking a look at what our options are.
Okay. Only because I don't know that we could hire a person, a principal assessor for
Yeah, I
maybe
mean,
6, I mean, I would hope that we could, but I don't know that we could.
yeah, well, obviously, Leah, you're familiar
Yeah.
with the department, how it runs. The benefit of having RRG is not only to provide the assessing services, but a lot of what traditionally we have to farm out that can't be handled by a principal assessor is included in their contract too. So it's not just as simple as saying, all right, RRG's contract is X, could we hire somebody for 80% of X?
Yeah,
That 80% doesn't work out because then we end up having to spend, for argument's sake, 40%
Yeah.
more to have all the other add-ons done
yeah.
outside.
That's kind of the point I'm making. 86,000 would not really be enough to,
Yeah, no, I mean, traditionally in the past, we have to get counsel involved with ATV cases and whatnot, and they handle that all in-house. They have specialists in-house, so,
yeah,
yeah, it's worked out very well for us over the past, I guess, 9 years at this point.
yeah. Yeah, it's been a while, huh?
It has been a while. We kept turning over rocks till we found our
Yep.
best option, and it may still be our best option.
Yep.
So I noticed that the GIS system, that went up a little bit this year. Now, is that for additional options, or is that just the
No, no, that's just an increase.
contractual? Kind of a big jump this year.
It is. It's what it's what the increase is. We really don't have any negotiating ability.
All right. Other board members, any questions for the assessors?
I do. That's all.
FinCom?
Okay. I have a question for you. So I'm a mortgage lender, and in many communities, you know, when we estimate what the taxes are, we'll look at what the taxes are, and then the property sells, and it obviously sells for a much higher rate. My question is, as far as reassessments on recently sold properties, how quickly is that process completed in Lakeville?
Well, it's less about when the process is completed and when it kind of affects the assessed value. So what happens is on something that's sold today, you're not going to realize that for, depending on what time of year it is, to up to 2 years later, because we don't update everything until we have a full year cycle. Then we have to analyze everything, and then by the time it gets recalculated, so to speak, it could be up to 2 years, again, depending on when it falls in the sales cycle, so it's not immediate.
Okay, thank you for answering that question, Madam Chair. I know of, at least in Easton, and I know I've heard of other towns, but I can't quote them off the top, the assessments are being done extremely quickly. Like you're closing in, at least that's my understanding, they're closing in like January, and they have their new tax bill before the end of that next quarter. So I don't know how they're doing it, but I'm sure they're just trying to get more money as quickly as they can.
You mean the new tax bill, and they've increased the value of the property?
Yes,
in-
very quickly.
In months?
The last one I was aware of was January. I think we closed January 15th, and before a month was by, their new tax bill had come around.
Yeah, the assessed value doesn't change that quickly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but that's a pretty
I mean,
interesting thing.
if you get some additional information and get it over to us, we can
Okay.
kind of weed through it and figure out what's
Some of
going
my free
on.
time, just a question.
I mean, yeah, you're right. In some cases, if the house hasn't had their 10-year or whatever, they could be, but it doesn't usually.
But in a couple months, it never happens.
Okay,
Yeah, and that process is dictated by the state, so.
Correct.
It's not just we get to arbitrarily decide when
that's why I
we
was
wanna-
curious about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, nobody else has anything? I just wanted to go over some accomplishments. So the assessors have completed a full DOR, Department of Revenue certification. Reviewed and adjusted all land values, real property values, commercial, industrial, and residential, personal property account values, and neighborhood codes. Reviewed and rendered decisions on more than 100 chapter land applications and charitable organization exemptions. Processed nearly 400 statutory exemptions. And assisted in the implementation of the CPA program in Lakeville and processed 26 CPA exemptions in the program's first year. All right, so everybody's involved in our CPA. All right. Thank you very much for coming
You're
out.
welcome. As much as I'd like to stay here and chat with you folks, I get to go chair a ZBA meeting now, so.
Oh, yes.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, John. Okay, I'd like to invite our Director of Inspectional Services.
I have the budget pages 37.
Oh, okay, great. Hello, Mr. Dowling.
Hello. Where do you want to start? You got conservation first? Yes. Okay. So conservation, we're holding the same salary for conservation agent. Everything else is staying the same, so we got a 0% increase we're looking at this year. Is there any questions on that?
One question. Salary for conservation for that, is that 15 hours?
18.
18.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem like an awful lot of money.
It's not, it was something that I remember, like, coming on and going, that's not a real salary for the job.
I'm
And then-
afraid if, you know, we have a
We used to budget,
vacancy that we're not going to be able to replace that for.
we used to budget 24 every year, and then it wasn't coming up as 24, so we ended up cutting it back years ago, if I remember correctly.
So the last couple of years, we've actually contemplated reducing it because we're not using it. We're trying to utilize more consultants through peer review. So a developer comes in and they present the project, we're trying to focus on peer review and the developers foot the bill. The master plan does call out a full-time conservation agent, so we don't want to reduce it, but, you know, I think that increasing it at this point while we're evaluating both planning department and conservation might not make a lot of sense.
Yeah, Madam Chair, that was my next question. Would you see a benefit to having a role that was a quote-unquote dual role, or something that had crossover functions to support not only this role, but to lessen the burden of additional services that you would need
So
on top of
we've
it?
been evaluating that. I've got about 8 job descriptions that have joint roles. I spoke to some folks in Mattapoisett who tried to advertise for a joint role. It was unsuccessful. I wish I was here for the planning discussion. I was kind of watching it. I saw it was supposed to be towards the end of the meeting. But that is something we're watching closely, and I might have missed it, but we didn't really talk about peer review accounts. I didn't hear the discussion about peer review accounts during that planning discussion. When we talk about consultants, that's paid for by the developer. That's not through our, finance, town finance. So I think that we need to be more cognizant of that going forward. Try to make sure we have 2 or 3 peer review engineers on call, vetted. Also, I've never been a fan of having peer review engineers do work in the town that they're peer review, in that peer review consultant role. And so, if we can do a better job coordinating that, I think that there's a better delivery of service, and the bill is, paid for by the person that's using it.
One or 2 peer review that we're working with right now.
So we're using a couple now. So Beals and Thomas does a lot of work with the Zoning Board of Appeals, Environmental Partners, who's fantastic, does a lot of work for planning. They're the ones that did the work on the hospital proposal with the warehouse. We do have some wetland scientists that we're looking at right now to start doing peer review, or more peer review for conservation. So we're hoping to kind of think out of the box and use that more. So, I like the idea of using consultants. I was listening, I don't remember who said it, consultants are nice because there's not as much liability there. So if they're not performing like you want them to perform, you just hire another consultant. So,
To bring back what Leah said, there is a danger of lack of investment, lack of cohesive, thought and feeling for the town and for your people you work with, which it has to be the balance of the right consultant, obviously, but there is that loss of community a little bit.
there is, the other side of that too is to pay a salary for a professional engineer to do this type of work, you're not in the 80s anymore.
Right.
You're a lot more than that, double if not triple that in some instances. So to staff that through taxation never made sense to me, because that's not what we should be doing. And I look at my own role, which is statutorily required. You could talk to a lot of people. They call Nate, what can I do on my property? I said, well, you can start by hiring, an engineer or an attorney. Because we're not supposed to be providing advisory opinions on matters. That is something that's happened in the past. It's a bad judgment, and it's using tax money for somebody else's homework. You should never be doing that. So, we're trying to evaluate the planner position. It was a good exercise. It was a worthwhile exercise. Master plan, put that in there. We needed a planner. We went through that. Now we got to evaluate it, see, what worked for us, what didn't work for us. And I think that we got to do the same thing with conservation as we move forward. I'm not saying do away with the conservation agent by any means, but we have to have staff, but we also have to have the support from, the professional engineers out there to make sure that we're in the right place and we're not missing anything.
It just puts small towns in a bind.
It does. In another thing that's important, and we joke about this a lot of times in my world, is when you're a building commissioner in a small town, it's harder than in a city. And, you always see, salaries change. You're in a city, you're getting more money, but you're doing less.
Yeah.
You have to know less, here, whether it be DPW, facilities, myself, Board of Health agent, everybody, town administrator.
Hands-on.
You gotta be a Swiss Army knife. You gotta know everything, a little bit about everything, and know when you don't know, and where you gotta find the answers or get the support either through a peer review engineer or counsel. Probably way off subject on that, but.
Madam Chair, just a point of clarification. So I think that if I understood you correctly, the feeling was that the consultants would be paid for by the developer under the peer review policy that we have.
Yep.
And I think when the planning board was here, they were talking about consultants in the context of perhaps not having the full-time planning position, but instead using a consultant to replace that advice, so more related to land use, not necessarily engineering. So just as a point of clarification, in case that matters.
No, that's a good point. So rules and regulations of the planning board. You hire a consultant to do that because you're not going to be able to, get those fees through peer review because it's not peer review. So you have certain aspects of planning and zoning and land use in general that we're going to have to pay for. Zoning bylaws are the same way. If we need a draft zoning bylaw, Serpent works with us a lot. They did the original open space residential development bylaw as well as an inclusionary bylaw. And they've consistently helped us in the past. We get Serpent hours every year. We can use those, and if we run out of those, you can get more. Serpent also writes grants for themselves. So in the past, we've had Green Communities grants that Serpent has come in and written their own grant to provide administrative support for the town to write, quarterly reports, annual reports, help us with procurement. So, there's a lot of those things that I don't know as though we're
Maxed out.
tapping into
we're
as
not
well
tapping
as
into them as
we
much.
could.
They do a great job, too.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
And those resources are out there, and they're professionals. They're not reinventing the wheel. A lot of times, here, we start out in a project and we think it's the first time it's ever been done. That's pretty close-minded, because if you reach out to the right people, it's probably been done before.
Does SERPA do per fee consulting, or they're just available to, we each have a resource, each community that pays in
Correct.
gets a certain amount of time? Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
And if it does expand past the allotted hours, then they'll, put together prospectus as to what the cost would be to finish the project, or to support the project, so we would know.
And that's a great resource. They're amazing over there.
Right, and so like, I know the question had come up about Easton with the assessors, same kind of thing, Nate, that, you call Serpent and one of the other communities that they're servicing probably has experienced something, and they'll be able to provide some insight. So they're a great resource. We are a member of, that group, so we really should be. I mean, maybe that constitutes a conversation, with the planning chair and maybe somebody from conservation, maybe just have a meeting with Serpent to talk about, hey, this is kind of where we are, what kind of services or what other communities might be in the same predicament, and, what's working, what's not. So, yeah, you're right, the resources are out there.
So that 30,000, I would like to just keep there as we're evaluating other positions. I suppose that, if there was a reason to reduce that a little bit, I mean, I'd rather not do it because it kind of backs us into a corner, but. So next is inspectional services, some slight increases here and there, all contractual, department head with the standard 3%, the rest is all contractual requirements. Everything in training, postage, printing, office supplies, dues and subscriptions, I just zeroed those out. I'm not asking for any increase there. So we can go part-time inspections. Thing that is important to remember about that, it's we are collecting revenue with that. We got placeholders. Todd is a huge help with that because he understands you see revenue coming in for inspections. Generally for sub-inspectors, we charge $50 per inspection. The inspector gets 40 of that, 10 stays in an administrative fee. So you'll never see any offset, like any gross, hey, we spent this, but we only took in this for revenue. We try to maintain modest numbers there. A lot of times, like in 21 and 22, we've had to have transfers. In an ideal world, I don't know if it would ever be possible. I guess it might be a Todd question that I can pose to him again. I would rather those part-time inspectors be brought up into salaries if they could. It gives me a little more flexibility, but if it can't, it can't. The reason being is because at the end of the day, we're looking at that bottom line number. And so if an electrical inspector goes, $500 over and plumber inspector is $1,000 under, if it was all in the same classification, it would just offset. I wouldn't be asking for transfers at the end of the year. So just something to consider. I see that with Board of Health too, with the public health nurse. I mean, I can't tell her not to go out when there's a communicable disease. She has to go, and this year I might be asking for a transfer. We got to see what happens. We're going to be right down to the line. If it is a transfer, it's probably $500 or $600.
Madam Chair, I have just one question. No, go ahead, Brian.
Actually, Matt, I was just going to ask, are you happy where our fee structure is right now?
Damn it, Brian, that's my question.
So generally yes, because you've heard the expression taxation without representation. It's something that's real. It's something that goes around a lot. Cities are constantly accused of creating a tax from building department fees. We are 1.5% of construction costs on commercial, and then we're 40 cents a square foot on residential. What that means, I mean, you look at it, the revenue side, I think in 2022, I probably have it here, it was almost like 520,000, 530,000, somewhere in there of revenue, and the expenses were 400,000. So,
Does that, the 400,000, does that include the permitting software that we're
yes,
using and all the increases
that's all. We even
that we
looked
get?
at it to say if we had to justify that, that would include building. So what is the operational cost and, square footage and everything else. We tried to add that all in. I try to remain cognizant of that part of the fees, fee structure. So I guess to that point, we are watching it closely. I mean, if we want to look back at conservation's right now doing a fee structure analysis. Board of Health is as well. We're slightly above Board of Health. Board of Health and Building have a lot of permitting that's similar in nature. For instance, is trenches. So we have numerous trench authorities in Lakeville, statutorily required. Building gets $50 per trench permit, Board of Health gets 25. It doesn't make any sense. We're gonna bring that up. It's minimal, but we wanna make sure that everything, percolation tests, witnessing percolation tests, installation licenses, and then all, building fees and conservation fees.
That was 1.5% on construction costs for commercial, and I missed the number on
40
the.
cents per square foot for residential.
Thank you.
Yep, 25 cents a square foot for agricultural. And I did supply permit activity charts in my submittal to the select board. I don't know if anybody's got those or not, but that gives the activity numbers, and I can tell you what they are. I mean, 402,000 revenue collected in 21, fiscal year 21. 1,900 permits issued, 3,338 inspections conducted by my office, plumbing, electrical, gas, and building. FY '22, $495,734 revenue collected, 1,633 permits issued, 2,985 inspections completed. 2023, you're going to see a downward trend, only $290,000 collected. When we see building numbers, 21 and 22 were our highest numbers since the mid-'80s. So we did 105 new residential units in Laekville in 2021. And so you put that into perspective, that's 105 new residential units. That's an awful lot of residential units. We saw that in the mid-'80s with conventional subdivision. The 105 units, probably only 18 of them were conventional. The rest of them were 40B and 40R. So, as we see, you hear the term snob zoning, right? You see communities going up, we're going to do an acre and 5/8, we're going to do acre and 3/4, we're going to do 2 acres. Dartmouth just changed some zoning districts to 2 acres and 200 feet of frontage. By doing that, we think we're doing one thing, but we're really, if you have infrastructure in place, we're actually bringing in 40B because that's the only reasonable development opportunity at that point. Which is, not only taxing, again, there's a need for 40B, and don't take this the wrong way, but it's taxing for the town. And, with the current projects being proposed right now, I'm one person. You got one building commissioner, I got a $10,000 set aside in the event that I am off or sick or have a conflict of interest, but that's it. So. If some of these other projects come down the pipeline, we got talking a year or two out, you might see me next year looking for an assistant.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, just to that point, how many part-time clerks do you have?
So we have a part-time Board of Health clerk, and I guess to back up a little bit, the spirit of inspectional services was to collaborate and make more efficient the department, the land use department. And at the time of conception, we included all land use zoning and planning administrative support. So we kind of did, it was supposed to be a one-stop shop. So we did that through special legislation to streamline the process in open lines of communication. So we're cross-training clerical staff. We have redundancy in the office for the for what we're required to do. So we have 2 part-time clerks, part-time Board of Health clerk, part-time inspectional services clerk. The part-time inspectional services clerk was created and filled to fill the void of the clerk, the full-time clerk that left for the planning department. So the planning department clerk was working under me as far as administrative support or clerical support for planning board and zoning board of appeals. When she went to the planning department, we had to backfill because that position was doing plumbing and gas as well. Management of permits, scheduling inspections, payroll, organization, stuff like that. And so we also have the executive assistant in my office that helps me draft, performance evaluations, does all the payroll, make sure that, we have all our conflict of interest training to Lil on time, stuff like that really helps high-level coordination, so I'm not doing that.
Sounds like you're already doing a lot.
I mean, you know.
I'm doing a bit.
You're using terms like redundancy and all this other stuff, and actually, for the folks at home, it may sound like you have a lot of people, but you really don't.
No.
You have extremely good people who are probably doing a whole lot more work in their part-time position than,
Yep.
Does more with less.
Right.
I couldn't be more proud of the people that I work with. I wouldn't be me if I didn't have them.
Yeah.
Right to the part-time people that work with me.
We don't want to stretch you to the bone. We don't want to
Yeah.
cut. We don't want to.
So just, you know, for a little history too, is, I had put in for an enhancement. So I did facilities too, and Paul's here, and he's really taken a tremendous amount of weight off of my shoulders from a facilities perspective. But when the facilities manager came up, really the enhancement that I had requested at the time and was denied, was a part-time, was an assistant building inspector that would take on the role of facilities. So we were trying to create that redundancy. It didn't go in the direction, it's fine, it worked out. I mean, Paul is fantastic. That work has all come off my plate, which is great. But again, you know, looking at, you know, current staff and areas to expand upon current staff, always looking at opportunities to make us more efficient. So part-time staff that may be looking to go full-time, you don't need another desk. I mean, yeah, you have, you know, the insurances and vacation and those liabilities, but there's, it's always something to be said about full-time staff and utilizing space. And we know space in the town hall is at a premium. So, you know, if you can utilize the space by having staff, and the staff has more cross-training or ability to cover others when they're out on, you know, sick or vacation, stuff like that, you continue to do business. You don't really miss one person.
Did you say you put in an enhancement, or was this the previous?
No,
when you put in the
previously.
enhancement
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
the director of facilities?
yeah.
Manager. Okay. But there were no enhancement requests for this?
No.
No, I was just sitting here
Just
listening
enhance the
to,
weather, maybe.
yeah, I was just sitting here listening to, you know, to the work infrastructure that you have going there, and I kept thinking, you know, Franklin, can he just borrow your cape for the rest of the year for now? But, and you're all wearing capes. They do, when they leave here, they're all superheroes.
For sure.
All right, so, questions?
So, Mr. Darling kind of touched on it towards the end there, so my question might be kind of moot at this point, but, you know, you're at 4 full-time and 3 part-time right now. You probably heard planning suggest another part-time. You added a part-time to clerk. I mean, I appreciate that it sounds like you're thinking of ways to gain some more efficiencies, because that's a lot of heads. Is there a better way to make more use of their skills?
I think it's going to be a collaborative effort. I would suggest that perhaps, you know, we get a small working group to, you know, flesh this stuff out and really look at the pros and cons. Continue to, you know, reach out to Serpent and reach out to some of the engineering firms and get some numbers together and, you know, see what services are out there available at reasonable cost. And then I guess internally, we have to have a heart-to-heart. I mean, there's always going to be that cost-benefit analysis, and we have to weigh heavily on that. So, you know, I don't know what the catalyst to get people all in the same room with that, with, you know, the planning board and the select board, and because really that discussion touches a lot more than just land use. So, you know, planning in itself is more than just land use. It's planning for the future, and that's not permitting and licensing. That's what do we want to see ourselves. That's even parks, right? So, you know, you get a long-term parks plan. What do you want to see with the parks? What do we need to fix? We got to really start focusing a lot more on maintaining what we have instead of getting new. So you get new stuff and you're not maintaining what you already have. It's bad, and that goes with employees, that goes with buildings, that goes with grounds. You know, employees and all that stuff, it's all like cars. You take good care of it, they run for a long time. You don't take care of it, it doesn't. So-
Demolition by neglect.
Demolition by neglect, John Powderly. But that's the truth, and, you know, we know, and I don't want to dig too far into it, but, you know, the class and cost compensation plan that we were just doing. we need to look at our current staff, look at what they are getting, and look at what their worth is, and figure out how to retain them. I hear the fire chief talking about it a lot of times, and, you know, we want to be a good place to work, and we're a beautiful town, there's no reason we can't be, you know, a good place to work. And, you know, I'm all for stealing employees from other towns. To be honest with you. You know, because you're gonna get that, you know, you're gonna get that history and professionalism.
Madam Chair, it sounds like there could be an opportunity for some workshops, just for those type of decisions and internal structures and collaboration between multiple groups to come up with not only, you know, what positions are working now, but what it needs to look like in the future in order for it to continue to work like a well-oiled machine and be where people can be fairly paid and compensated in a way that's commensurate with their role, and make sure we're not having, we like to have backups, but we don't like to have duplication. So, you know, there needs to be that discussion as well, but yeah.
If I may ask, Mr. Nunes, did you hire Tricia Cassidy in Middleborough?
I know she was there before.
She was there before you got there. So this is the conservation agent in Middleborough.
Extraordinaire.
Extraordinaire, okay, award-winning, and, you know, and this is why, you know, I feel like the first planner that we hired, you know, maybe necessarily wasn't the perfect fit. But it doesn't mean that someone isn't out there. So while I have the utmost respect for, you know, thinking outside the box and doing whatever, I've seen this, you know, I've seen Tricia, she participates. She picks up the phone when I call her and she says, "You're our neighboring town, so why wouldn't I want to talk to you?" You know, I mean, she's done walkthroughs here in Lakeville with people on conservation stuff. I just hope that, I just don't know what we do, and this is what we have to decide, and this goes to what, you know, Nate just said, you know, I mean, do we abandon this planner position totally, like, and I know, we've talked about it, I think we've talked about to a couple of the same people, where doing a combined planner conservation position, or vice versa, conservation planning, or whatever. And again, we're a small town, we don't have the same kind of money to pay people, but, you know, I feel like, you know, part-timer. I just, don't know that we're,
Yeah, I think a small working group is ideal, so, action item, Tracy.
I'm gonna get a
And
flag.
really flush this out,
Yeah.
really, and, you know, have that open dialogue, you know, and then come back with a recommendation.
If I may, just a general comment, I do like the way that inspectional services is organized. I think outside of like, you know, police and fire, where public safety is always very organized, this one is a good example of where you do have people that can back people up when they're out and such. And you look at the org chart that Lacey set up for us, and it just looks like a pack of sand. It's as wide as it can be with all these departments of one or two
Departments of
people.
one, yeah.
And I know we talked a little bit about this a few months ago, but it would be wonderful just to see some more discussion on what's best for the town's resources.
I think we're all in agreement there. So no fighting at the table tonight.
Nope.
Yep.
FinCom, any questions for me? So you're done?
Oh, I think so.
All right, I'd like to,
I just put a bunch of blank pages in here to make it look like a
I heard they do that with interrogations too. They just load up the folder. This is all about you. So some of your accomplishments.
Is town organization look-see action item?
Yes, for us, yes, please. To look at the infrastructure of our vacant positions and upcoming vacancies, yeah. So, during 23-24, the Department of Inspectional Services and Permitting experienced significant staffing changes, including the town's wiring inspector of 32 years, the sealer of weights and measures of 21 years, part-time clerk, assistant health agent, Special Assistant Board of Health Agent, and the Inspector of Animals. So the department has been successful filling each of these positions and is fully prepared for the FY25 fiscal year, because I know you went and you took them from other towns. The town of Lakeville, through the leadership of local officials, the Energy Advisory Committee, and others, have been a proactive participant under the Green Communities Initiative since its designation in July of 2012. In addition to the previous $757,023, I'm just going to say that one more time, $757,023 in Green Communities grant awards and $64,000 in utility and technical grants associated with these projects. Lakeville was recently awarded $110,855 to fund energy efficiency improvements at the animal shelter and Loon Pond Lodge. These improvements include heat pumps, weatherization and Wi-Fi thermostats, or thermometers I heard on the radio today. I know. Which are anticipated to drive down utility costs around $8,300, and that would be annually in these buildings. Similar to last year, the town of Lakeville has seen a continuing downward trend in building permits, and while this downward trend represents a return to historic averages, it has also enabled the department to begin recovering from a very volatile few years.
Madam Chair, before Mr. Darling leaves, and while we have both him and Mr. Day here,
trouble?
yes, so the schools have the capital planning committee.
Next Tuesday night, I think it is.
You participate as a member?
I don't remember,
Okay,
to be fair.
okay.
You should look into that.
It's only one, right? There's only one capital expenditures committee that the schools have, and I believe you used to participate, and then that was changed.
Yeah, I started on that and met once, and then I was asked to be replaced with the planner. I did just see it, they did just add me to that, so the school sent out an email, I guess it was last week.
Okay.
Brian and I are both, at least in the email thread.
Yeah, okay. I just didn't know, I just wanted to clarify if I was getting something wrong there. I don't know if they represent like an elected position, a staff position. I don't even know anything of their
I
makeup.
don't know how it's made up either.
But I just know that, you know, Mr. Darling has an incredible relationship with the director of facilities for the schools.
Absolutely.
They're doing this huge feasibility study right now that cost, what, a couple, wasn't it like a lot of money? And I feel like we definitely need to have representation in that as they begin to talk about what comes from that feasibility study. So I just want to be sure.
I'm intending to
Okay.
be there.
All right,
And see
great.
it through.
Okay.
Yes.
So you reading his accomplishments made me realize something to go back and look at, so I apologize for having another question. So I think you said we're anticipating, I know it's kind of cart before the horse, I think you said $8,300 in heating improvements for the animal control and Loon Pond Lodge, so I just went back and looked, but we still are maintaining the same $3,500 in heating fuel for next year at animal control. I didn't find Loon Pond Lodge yet, but I'm just wondering if that's something that, like, is this a wait and see year and then fix it next year, or isn't the whole heat pump system and?
I'm kind of out of the utility side of it.
Yeah.
We do track it, we do report it annually to the Department of Energy. I was under the understanding that Todd had recommended last year to group utilities similar to IT and then have sub-accounts on it.
Okay.
So is that not reflecting in the budget, you know, the utilities being combined?
I can't say for sure, but at least I'm staring at animal control. There's an electricity line, a heating fuel line, so maybe not yet.
That's a tremendous return.
Yeah, so from a, I don't want to belabor that, but to just to explain that, in order to be competitive with the grant rounds, we have to see a 10-year return on investment. So we're just south of $1 million in the last decade of Green Communities grants. So if you put that in, as including the schools, we've done a lot of work on Assawamsett Elementary School. We do own that building. Believe it or not, it's about $100,000 a year in savings in aggregate over the last decade. And that was based on the numbers at that time. So, you know, it's something to be proud of. There's a lot of people that worked on that. Kind of a big deal. We are unfortunately just about out of qualifying projects, but they are changing it up a little bit with the decarbonization plan. So, you know, we're seeing now that you don't need a 10-year return on investment on fossil fuel heat. So, you know, it's something we're looking at the Assawamsett Elementary School at some point. The Laekville Library is oil heat. So if we can change that stuff over to heat pumps, we may get, you know, 50%, you know, reimbursement. Those won't be 100% because they're a different qualifier. The Green Communities grants are 100%. So, you know, we might be able to find, you know, it's a $200,000 project and we can come up with 100,000, you're going to get the rest of it. And you'll still see a significant return on investment.
And Nate ensures he gets the return on investment. If you've ever worked in a building with him, he controls all the heat like your dad used to when you were young.
So no joke, they used to have signs here, and I think they've taken them off now. Nope, they're still there. It used to say, "Don't touch without Nate's permission."
Yes, yes. You would go in one room and you'd see it automatically going down, and you know Nate's there with a remote somewhere turning it down.
We do sign a contract with Green Communities through these projects, and we are required to show that return on investment on an annual basis. And so it's important to know, just for everybody watching and for you folks, we did receive an award from the state for a 20% reduction in energy consumption in municipal buildings. So,
Can that go on Facebook? That's a big deal.
Yeah, that is a big deal.
Yeah,
Especially with our older buildings.
exactly.
It makes, you know.
I finally found it while you guys were chatting.
Brian found it.
Brian.
So parks, under parks expenses, there's only one line item for all heating fuel, so I can't break it down by Loon Pond Lodge or anything, but it's still 7,000, where last year was 7,050. So now's the time where we revisit this next year to see if those returns have come in, and we could maybe drop some out of these.
But the returns would be offset by the price increases.
Potentially, yeah.
I don't think we'll be
I
seeing
don't know, I think
returns.
we're gonna need to look for some money this year.
But we could look at gallons used to
Yep,
see if we.
gallons used
you know,
would be a good
maybe-
metric.
Maybe we didn't save on money, but it could have been worse.
Yes.
If we saved on gallons used.
I agree.
All right, we're
Sorry
good, Nate.
for the
Thank
detour.
you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I think Devaney is here to represent cemetery.
do you have another meeting tonight, or you had a meeting? All right, Deb, why don't you come on up? We'll talk cemetery.
Is it a good one?
Anybody that comes to the table is required for 5.
49.
Oh,
Yes.
sorry, 49.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Cemetery. 49, you said?
Yep. Yeah, I'm good.
So there's no change at all from last year?
So, I know with
25.
the medallions that went under, there was, I think, $2,000 that we budgeted last year. I think that's under the veterans budget, but the medallions that the cemetery also needed
For the veterans?
for the veterans. So I just wanted to just tap in to see, you know, according to our veterans agent, we're good, we have enough. I don't know if that's,
I'm not familiar with that. I don't know that Ken has handled that exclusively. But he said no need for any change.
okay. All right. Well, does
Brian, anything?
I was going to ask a question, but it's the same one I asked before, so if you want to ask it this
No,
time.
no, you go.
Sorry. Through you, Madam Chair, just because Debbie, do you know if the cemetery commission, are they also happy with where their fee structure is right now? Are they looking to revisit that anytime soon, or things
I
are
don't know
in
that
line?
either.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Madam Chair. To Member Day, they upped 2 of their fees in 2023.
Okay.
I think it was
I
grave
remember that.
opening, and there was
Right.
one other one that so they reviewed their fees and they
memory,
raised
Tracy.
those.
All right, thank you.
memory.
Appreciate it.
Madam Chair, where are those fees reflected in the budget? Are they in the operation somewhere?
In local receipts.
Yep,
Oh, okay. Thank you.
in the pot.
Yeah. And I think I asked this question last year, maybe the year before. Automation, I mean, is the tracking of all of the cemetery business that happens, is that all automated?
Online.
Not online, but I mean, is there a program that you're using to,
I don't believe so.
I think it's.
it's
by
still,
hand.
okay. Well, that's something I would like to explore. Maybe we put that under the the future IT committee, to look at an opportunity for automating it's not automating, it's being
Moving away
able
from
to-
paper?
Moving away from paper and
Yeah.
file,
Yeah,
in the file cabinet, so.
yeah, because we have massive file cabinets going back to forever for all.
We just have one. We have one legal size cabinet
It's,
for the cemeteries.
yeah,
It's out in our foyer,
yep. It's full.
so.
One other question, if I may. I don't see it here, but I know the last few years, the cemetery was working towards getting all of the granite columns and iron bars in place. Has there been a plan worked out for that?
We are working towards that, but it hasn't been decided yet, as far
Okay.
as I know. I'm relatively new to the cemetery commission,
Okay, so it's still in play then?
but that is the plan, that we want to go ahead and do that.
Yeah, I think there was a challenge of finding the exact
I remember something like
granite,
that.
and they were searching
They
and
were trying to
searching.
take it from another property that they thought it came from originally, like it had been moved or sold
Yeah,
or
in order
or
to,
something.
in order to make it in the historic register, they have to be, so there's a couple of
Authentic.
cemeteries that I believe Mr. Upham feels can make it into the registry. So there's a couple of posts in cemeteries not really qualified to do into the registry, so we may, move them over. But he's always, I know, on the search for those posts because they're very hard to find.
And I know,
I have a person that had worked for me who had done some stonework, historical reconstruction. He does wonderful work. And so we just got, we're just kind of working out with him to see what his bid will come in at.
oh, nice.
So, but he can put his hands on all of that.
So we did talk about moving something under the capital plan
Last year.
last year.
Yep, yep,
This is a good CPA project too.
yeah.
Yeah. True. So we'll, as we get closer to, finding a solution or an answer, then, obviously, we'll invite you back for an opportunity. We'll find the funding to help support that. Let's see here.
Facilities. Facilities.
All right. Thank you very much, Debbie, for coming in.
So facilities is 41.
Paul, would you like to come on out? Now, is this year two of your? Yeah.
Hello, how you doing?
Good, how about
Been a
yourself?
few years, huh? Yeah,
At least in person.
I know, I know.
Okay, if you wouldn't mind taking us for a little walk down your,
Certainly. Although I will take that cape off. My wife might be watching. She doesn't need to know anything. Facilities, we're fully staffed. I should back that up. on your manager or your proposed budget, there's 3 part-time employees. We only currently have 2. That hasn't changed. We do have a college student part-time, so I'm not really sure if she's going to be sticking around. So having that extra spot just kind of gives me some leeway there. It wasn't as drastic of a winter, so we didn't need that additional person to, help with salting, shoveling, so that was helpful. As far as, I'm not asking for anything more in the budget. There isn't anything that, as far as emergency repairs, anything like that. The budget itself, as you can see, we've only used, we're at 70%. I still have $20,000 in the budget. I don't foresee carrying anything over into the next fiscal year. The only increases is contractual and the 3% for my salary. As far as the work that we're doing, we're right where we should be,
Leah, you had a question?
Yeah, so just on the expenses, Paul, so obviously, everyone can see the, decrease of 13.8% in repairs and maintenance, and then what the other contracted services are. Can you just tell us what those are for?
What's that, the first line?
Yeah, the first line from the 90 down to the 77.
So Bob had decreased the budget. He must have seen somewhere where you could have cut that. I don't actually know what that deduction was for.
Yeah, I'm just curious what it is, because 22 was $1,100, about 23 was 36, and then we went up to like 90, and then we're down to 77. So I just don't know what is supposed to be going in there, in that line
When you
item.
use that line item fund, that's what she's asking.
Yeah,
That is for all of the departments within the town, COA. That's money that's being spent for Burgess Pest Control.
okay, all right,
All the fire extinguishers.
okay.
Yeah.
My
So-
understanding is all those lines that are now zeroed out were consolidated a couple of years ago, so they didn't have to rob Peter to pay Paul if one facility needed more in a certain year.
So they can just,
Do it.
okay. All right, and then Bob, do you know what's under other contracted services? Or Paul, do you know, what did we, I don't even remember what we had in there,
I do not.
the last line.
No, I'm not quite sure either.
Yeah, okay,
But I can ask Todd and find that out for you.
yeah, okay. No, it's not really a,
So you can answer that.
okay. Sure.
It's Nate.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, no problem. That's why I stuck around, because, I was involved in a lot of this, the facilities budget prior to Paul getting here, and that's just, if we gotta hire an OPM, if we gotta hire a designer, write up bid specs, stuff like that. That's what that piece was for.
Okay,
Okay.
okay. It's, I mean, it obviously, yeah, it obviously doesn't look like something that we're using all the time, so I just, just
Well,
looking at it.
You're right, so even with Paul on board, if you remember why we did that, we were looking for a licensed construction supervisor, and that's what Paul brings to the table, so he's familiar with writing up specs. So Paul, unlike, somebody else might not be able to do that, Paul's able to do that, so you might see a decrease in that in
Yeah.
years to come. Same thing with the owner's project manager. I mean, Paul's been doing this his entire life. He's really, really good at it.
Yep,
So we're less apt to need an owner's project manager on the smaller projects. If you get into larger projects over 300,000 or over 30,000 in design, there's a different statutory requirement, and Paul can't do that. But smaller projects, we're seeing it every day. Paul's relatively humble, so he's not going to tell you everything that he's doing, but he's managing all those projects, and he's saving the town an awful lot of money, so.
Yeah. And I will go on record and say, the select board it was not for you, Paul, for the actual creating of the position. I could have gone either way with like a license, but Mr. LaCAM and our current chair were adamant that they wanted a licensed person, and I think that was, I could have gone either way. I think I may have even voted no. I'm not sure. I might have voted yes, but I know I could have gone either way, and it ended up being a really great decision, and that's how we got you, so,
I appreciate that, but more importantly, I appreciate Nate, Frank, Laurie, Tracy. She helps out tremendously.
Yeah.
Bob, and all the other department heads, because my budget wouldn't work without working with all of their budgets as well. So, like, for instance, we had all the floors cleaned here. Laurie's budget for that, or the price for that was $2,800. So between me and Laurie, we split that. You only got 2 months left in the fiscal year, so that everybody's budget's tight right now.
Yeah.
So, it's nice that everybody's willing to work with each
together.
other's budgets to get all the work done.
Yeah, or else we would be making even more transfers at the end of the year to cover.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think even with the $20,000 deduction in this budget, knowing that everybody else is willing to work together, I think that should be fine.
Yeah. Yep.
Even if you have to kick something into the next July, or the following July.
Yeah.
Question here, and then we have another one here.
First of all, it's nice to meet you.
Nice
I
to
haven't
meet
met
you.
in person.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to see all your work you're doing.
All right, thank you, Nate.
We have a capital expenditures procedure and committee that we have together, and part of what would help make that work better is if we had a list of all the equipment that we have in all the building and all the repairs that need to be done, and that we can put useful life cycles together to put those together. Is that something you'd be able to work on, or is it something you've already started working on just for your own personal edification, just to see, like, what do I got in this building, what needs to be replaced, when should I be replacing it?
It's a good question. So when it first started, I did a walk around to every building, and typically what I do is I look at the safety aspects of things first. What's working well, what's not working well. But as far as the mechanicals, all that, there hasn't been a formal analysis or,
And in his defense too, when he got here, would you agree? He had
Crazy time.
he had a list of about 500 things that had to be done ASAP, every single one of them. So, that was, that was kind of ludicrous on our part, but.
There might still be a few
Yeah,
things
but
that are
some-
kicking down the road.
But a list like that would help go a long way to do what we're trying to do, which is be thoughtful about our capital plans and making sure we're replacing things or taking a look at things or budgeting things on a timely basis, instead of having those emergencies that come up when you don't have the budget for it, and you just deplete your entire budget for it and have nothing. So
I can definitely work on that.
Yeah,
That would be great.
that would be great.
Madam Chair, came out of the last select board meeting, an action item, establishing a project team. So earlier in the week, I met with Frank, Nate, and Paul, and Christina, and we are in the process of putting that all together. And I think that could be a very good component of the project team.
Yep, that's a great idea.
Excellent. Project team, see, no more committee.
All the capes, all the capes.
I love it. Brian, you had a question as well.
Not so much a question, if I may. I just want to say, even though Paul's budget's not huge, right, when you look at it, especially once all these other old accounts start to drop off. I mean, Paul and his people have to be some of the hardest working people we have in this town. I mean, I don't know how fast you drive, but I feel like I'll turn a corner, you're working on the pavilion, I'll turn another corner, you're swinging the hammer. I don't know how it happens. But, I mean, I think him coming in and getting up to speed as fast as he did was amazing. You've had so many projects thrown your way. I don't know.
I'd rather not be behind my desk.
Hey.
Darren, I
And
can tell you that.
Well, we'll make sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
We're helpful.
I mean, it's
On the
a,
sun, in your face.
Yeah, I got some more today.
get him some better SPF out there. But,
I know.
but I mean, really, though, I mean, he's really bridging this role of like part managerial and planning and such, and then he's out there getting it done. So I just want to say thank you, and
Well, thank you.
all department heads and such constantly speak very highly of the responsiveness and getting things
These two
done.
guys, they're huge in helping me. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, so, thank you. I mean, this goes a long ways towards preventing problems, preventing costs, keeping safety where it is on like one of the success things, but thanks.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, one question. Sorry, going back to the facilities repairs and maintenance, I'm not sure we got an answer. So it was 90,000 and it's been dropped 77,582, which is very specific. How did we come up with
I needed to
77?
balance the budget.
Thank you. That's what I thought.
Anybody else? All right, so some accomplishments, if I may. In collaboration with the Lakeville Council on Aging and the Animal Shelter, the Facilities Department expedited the procurement and installation of a standalone carport on each property. As part of the town's capital improvement plan, the Facilities Department, in partnership with the Department of Public Works, removed an existing dilapidated shed on the grounds of Clear Pond Park and replaced it with a new structure. And that's, I know that was something that the
Yeah,
parks
nice
had needed, so, helping out the parks there, that's great. Restored the Memorial Honor Roll. Memorial Honor Roll, using the original design and updated the structure with new maintenance-free, PVC, trim.
AZAC.
Yep, there you go.
Yeah,
And that, it looks really
it's
lovely.
awesome. Came out great.
Really.
Yeah. No paint, no. Yeah, it's gonna stand there for a long time.
In conjunction with the Lakeville Fire Department, Fire Systems, Inc., and the Lakeville Public Library, the Facilities Department coordinated and implemented the replacement of the library's fire panel, finally resolving months of hourly false alarms and restoring the fire safety to the property, which is great. Yeah, I think I heard that down at my house a few
I think
times.
LeBaron has a problem like that.
So, excellent.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very, very much,
Thank you all.
Paul.
I appreciate it.
Just ignore the alarms.
You need me to hang around, Frank? I softened them up for you. Thank you.
So DPW starts page 46, budget is on 48. How did you get the last spot?
Highest bidder.
Highest bidder, yeah.
Just wanted us tired and not asking questions anymore.
Okay. What do you got for us, Franklin? Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Department salaries are all contractual obligations and COLA raises, things of that nature. There's no enhancements in there. And expenses is working with Bob. We did a $10,000 budget cut to help balance the budget. And that's about that. Any questions?
That's it. That was quick.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Question on the education stipend.
Yep.
Is there a different additional training or that's available now?
So its education stipend should be clarified a little bit better, but it's through the new union contract, all CDL license holders get $750. And then there's a $500 also stipend, which is an actual education stipend. So that's all combined into that one line.
Okay, thank you.
Under the new contract.
Madam Chair. Frank, what was the education stipend? I missed the number. $750 for CDL license
Yep,
and,
and then it was, I think it's 500 for a bachelor's, I believe. I don't want to speak, I don't know that 100%, but I believe that's what the,
It's in the contract.
yeah,
Broken up
but
in
it's in the
contract.
contract, yeah.
I see here that there was an enhancement request that you were,
Yep.
had put out. If you wouldn't mind talking about that.
Yes, it was, I was looking for, to replace my part-time laborers, which is 3 part-time laborers that I currently have working with a full-time laborer. It's funny because one of the issues I've had in the past is filling those positions. This year I filled it within a day, but that's because I got one of the Freights boys and 2 of his college friends, so they filled it immediately, which is great.
Freights.
And another
Hard
reason for
workers,
that
yep.
is, so what a full-time guy does, so a lot of times I have these young men, kids come in, typically right out of high school. They're only working for me for a couple months, and a lot of the work we do, it takes them, well over a month to even just learn and kind of get their feet wet, I guess, and to really be able to work on their own. So by the time they learn it, they're already getting wrapped up to go back to school or whatever it may be. And then also a full-time guy also gives me an extra plow driver in the wintertime for snow and ice, which we then know we're having issues with contractors, so it does give me that, also that extra flexibility where he goes on a designated route. He's there every year and there's no chasing after anyone to try to fill those routes. But I will say my part-time laborers in the past, I have 2 that are now full-time laborers, one in the parks, one in the DPW. And in the up until last year, the prior years, we always had returning part-time laborers, so it was kind of nice. So they came in with experience already. But yeah, that's the basis of that. So I think it was like an $8,000 or a $9,000 enhancement to change the 3 into a full-time.
So if it's more, have we looked at a seasonal model? Or just with the workers that, where you said part-time and they come in and you're always trying to find replacements?
Well, they are seasonal. So I say part-time, I mean
Okay,
seasonal.
okay, so that's seasonal
so
hires?
yeah,
Just for
yeah.
from X to...
Yeah,
or A
so
to
they
Z.
usually come in middle to end of May,
Okay.
sometimes beginning of June, depending on their school schedules, and then they're gone by end of August
Okay.
typically, or sometimes earlier. I mean, they're young guys, so, they're typically a lot of times out of high school, or on college break, so they don't want to commit the entire time off into the DPW, and I don't blame them for that, So a lot of times they'll start either later or leave earlier, which is fine.
One for the part-time, this is 2 part-time summer people for 1 full-time,
3,
3.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Does that put you in a deficit in the summer though?
Well, not necessarily, because one full-time person trained.
Okay, so it's that
typically-
training gap that causes
Yeah, so
the-
you're kind of
yeah.
losing, with all 3, you're losing almost a month.
Mhm.
If you know what I mean? By the time they're fully trained. So, in my opinion, it gives a better work product.
I know that the trades are challenged right now with new trades coming in. And I would imagine that you might have the same type of situation with the line of work that our DPWs do. So there might be some interest for those that, might do that seasonal,
Yep.
that work, just to check it out, so to speak. Perhaps maybe down the road, we, if this ends up coming to fruition without the, the part-time positions, maybe there's some kind of an apprentice program that we can just implement just for those students that are out of school, just to see if this is the type of work that they would like to pursue. Just a thought, I just want to make sure that
I
we're,
think it's a great thought.
providing some kind of an opportunity, because I know that some students have actually stayed on and then,
Yeah.
they become workers, so.
No one really recognizes what the DPW does until they kind of get, step into it.
Right.
And from what I've seen, a lot of these young men who come in even as seasonal or part-time, they really gravitate towards it. Like, they seem to really like
Yeah,
being part of it.
I mean, you've got career, people that have, look at your longevity of some of the workers that you have on the team.
Yep.
You know, it's like a, I don't know how to say a tradition, but it's, you know, it's nice that you have this, people know you. They know you guys.
There's a good sense of accomplishment at the end of the day,
And
too.
community.
Except for that one turn on 79.
Madam Chair, you could also set up like an
Yes, Brian. Oh,
an
sorry.
internship program, or something like, whether it's a paid internship or not, like,
I think all internships have to be paid now.
do they? Okay, so in that, but I mean, it's short dollars, right? I mean, depending on how many hours they're putting in, so.
At least $15 an hour, and that's
I just don't want to lose the opportunity to bring in some new interested.
Right, no, and I think an
Right.
internship would do that, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, well, that's something that we can
I'm open to it for sure.
put on the project team.
The IT team?
Why not? I do have a question if I may. Frank, do you have, I'm just trying to go through quickly here, but it'd be faster to ask. Do you have any full-time laborers today?
2.
So when you,
Well, 2 within the DPW, and then 1 works on the parks.
so are they the ones responsible for training these people every time they come in, or is that fault of somebody else?
No, it falls to the day, I guess. It depends on where we, guys on vacation, or, so typically none of my guys take vacation in the snow and ice season, so there's a lot of guys out in the summer and spring. So if it's tree work, sometimes we're putting these young men on tree work, doing, more cleanup stuff, not really doing the tree work itself. Or maybe they're out paving, they're more doing the laboring part of it, but they're still learning at the same time, type of deal.
Appreciate that. I was going to say, Madam Chair, this feels like a position or an enhancement that we really might want to take another look at with some of the other cost savings we've seen in some of these initiatives, given that this might turn into the person that could train those internship type positions, and we're not losing time to bring them up to speed, and you've had to raise your plow rates all the time.
Every
And
year.
if this is someone you can pull in to do a couple routes, that might be a cost savings in the long run. I don't know if this number includes benefits and such, but
It does not.
that might be still cheap money compared to paying plow contractors and everything else.
Selectman Day brings up a huge point about like the driving portion. We've been very fortunate in the last few years to have some mild winters
Right.
that we know we're going to get socked again. There's going to be some type of stuff. but
Coming.
We haven't had anywhere near what we did in the decade before
Yep.
for those type of considerations. And that's where our budgets could just go really off the rails really quickly.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we have a good trend at least for a while longer.
Yeah, until you retire.
Yeah.
I mean, just a follow-on statement. I mean, I feel like, earlier in the night, we were talking about having people for longevity and, training and backup and leadership, and this, somebody might say it's a full-time labor, but that person is boots on the ground, knows everything about our facilities that's going on. They're really the kind of go-to people. So I don't know how you want to handle these kind of discussions, but I'd like to come back to that one at some point.
Yeah, we're definitely going to have a wrap-up of everything that we've heard that we'll get into, but this is why we have these meetings with our department heads, because they're the ones that are, working the system and, coming up with the SOPs, the standard operating procedures, and what's working and what doesn't. And as time changes and situations change or buildings change, you have to adjust. And so you might find another SOP or some infrastructure that's going to work better. And this is one of them. So this is why I enjoy having these conversations, so that we can work toward our planning and, better fiscal responsibility
A
too.
very good story I have, I'll make it real quick, but is with the transfer station, you guys approved the full-time laborer there a while
Yes.
back. So he then went and got his hoisting license on his own. And then he also followed up and went and got his CDL license on his own, so he could put himself in line to take over my lead operator, who's now retiring this year. So it kind of goes to show, like, if he wasn't given that opportunity, he may not have taken those steps, and now I have a
Invest in
succession plan.
himself. Yep.
I think that says a lot to do with
Yeah.
your leadership as well, though.
Appreciate that, but he's a really great guy, so he did all the right things.
So, Madam Chair, we would be remiss if we didn't give Mr. Moniz some accolades on his road, the maintenance of the roads. I mean, I know last year you did, I don't even know how many miles of road got paved. whatever you want to, resurfaced. I'm not sure what the correct term is, but I know my street, which hadn't been done in a while, and the neighbors are still talking about it, you know, especially now we're all coming out, starting to walk again in the neighborhood. It's just nice, and I know you've won awards for your work, and that's why this was concerning to me, the 250,000 versus 375 on the capital plan, that we reduced it, but we did, I'm sure you know by now, that we did vote the other night to make sure we use the ARPA funds for the other two, you know, and I wanted to try to get that done for you so you can start working on that. And we needed to do that with the ARPA funds so you don't get behind too, and because your overseeing of the road resurfacing, or whatever it is that it's called, has just been, you know, great. It really has. You just constantly on it, and you know,
My
Pickens
tires,
Street,
thank you.
I mean, yeah, and some of the big roads too. And also, I know that you are totally on top of the construction projects, like the Pickens Street Bridge is going to be done next year, everything to do with Route 79. And, you know, that's all in addition to your day-to-day work. But I think I've heard from so many people saying to me, wow, getting a lot of roads done. I'm like, yes, we are, aren't we? And that's one thing that people notice. So it's really nice to know how much time you put into that. So definitely nice to have those roads done.
You know, and I also,
No, you got it.
I just wanted to also point out that Franklin's department is responsible for stormwater maintenance too. So I know that you have your plan, and there's certain, there's a plan that you have to put together for is it every 3 years, or?
You have to meet it's basically every year. We're not necessarily where we need to be, but most people aren't. But I'd say we're ahead of the curve for the most part. Yeah, but I think in the coming years, we'll see. Of course, it's another unfunded mandate, which is
Right.
very expensive, especially to do a lot of what they're asking right now. But we're going to start seeing, I think, a lot of things coming with that as far as what needs to be done in town. I know me and Maureen had worked on some of that together in the past, and that was
Eric
we're
Arvin.
still, and even that, so even from then to now, is still not
Yeah.
there.
Do you remember what Eric Arbeen said? He said, it's a journey, not a destination.
Yeah.
So they know that it's going to go on for a very long
Yeah.
time, especially managing.
But the fact that you take it very seriously, and you put those measures in place to address it every year and make sure that those basins are, you know, cleaned out, and it's not a glorious job, but it gets done, and, you know, it's all that work that gets done when we're sleeping, and then we wake up and everything's just all, you know, it's all done.
Or you can't leave your street and all of a sudden they show up and now you can go to work.
Yes, Brian?
I had a question, and I'm going to tie back to, I think, one of the proposed ARPA projects. So, Frank, if you wouldn't mind, you know, like many, you're taking a $10,000 hit this year because of the restrictions we're under. Could you maybe speak a bit to, like, what 5,000 less in roadway maintenance means? And then I think there was a crack seal request on the ARPA projects, like what you might be able to do with that if that were something the select board entertained?
Yeah, so in the past, I think the past 2 or 3 years, it's been level funded, and obviously the continuous increase in pricing on. So the $5,000 decrease is really, it doesn't even equal a day. A day right now, I think, is 6,200, I want to say off the top of my head. Really, those 2 items, me and Bob just sat down, he's like, we need to cut this. I was like, well, basically here and here. I didn't have to really look, because honestly, it's, you never really know. A lot of these line items are really something more reactive, like, you know, for example, especially like repair maintenance on vehicles, for example. Like that could be a $30,000 line item this year if we had a loader break down and have some, you know, some really big things happen. So I just kind of randomly picked those. Yeah, so honestly, the ARPA request, there was a lot of things that I was looking, we have, I want to say we have 12 roads, 12 significant roads that need crack sealing right now. With the money here, I'm probably going to do about 5.
Okay. And then I think what the request was like 60 something stuff, so you said it's,
Yeah.
all right, you said it's about 6,000 a day or so.
Yeah, so it'll be about 9 days.
Madam Chair, through you to Mr. Day, to Mr. Moniz. Do you have a lot of projects coming up to deal with stormwater drains and stormwater runoff that we could probably flip over to ARPA as because we're not getting the crack sealing, and then put the crack sealing back in your budget to do more?
Not necessarily. So we rebuild the catch basins and do those things prior to every road job.
Yep.
So we have quite a bit of road work coming.
Do you think there's anything on your stuff that?
Shape as far as drainage goes. We don't have the amount of flooded roads that we've had in the past. I mean, there's some areas that at some point maybe we would need to invest, but we would have to come up with a pretty big plan on that.
Yeah. Do you have anything that you think you could kind of flip over to be an ARPA-funded project? That's something that was on your to-do list for this year in order for you to be able to realize those funds for something that would get funded by ARPA and use the other funds for crack sealing?
Possibly. Maybe I can work with Bob on that and see what we can come up with.
I mean, the U.S. Department of the Treasury, for the ARPA spending on the federal side, the federal allocation, I mean, one of the things that they do list is road building and maintenance, and other infrastructure. I don't know, I would say try to give it a go. Another discussion for another night, but I feel like it's a path to at least explore.
Sometimes it's just the way you phrase it as opposed to.
I'm saying it's kind of like your number one defense, almost, as to like, we know we're not getting to a lot of these roads for a long time.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, the glue that kind of holds it together for a little bit longer.
Yep.
type of deal.
Yeah. But yeah, if you could kind of brainstorm over your list and what you have, and maybe we can just flip it so you can allocate more money to the crack sealing, and then have, some of the other projects that might fall under what we're looking for.
Okay.
Or what the criteria states they're looking for. And then maybe we can wordsmith it a bit.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, any other select board? FinCom?
I have an annual question I'd like to ask Frank.
Ooh, I don't remember. I know what that question is.
Maybe, maybe not. So I just always like to ask them, like, what roads do you want to do? So for your repaving projects, you usually have a list
This year?
going. Yeah.
So this year we should have funding, enough funding with the, considering we're doing the ARPA project, to do Southworth Leonard. A portion of Southworth is done, basically at Leonard, going, that towards, the Taunton area there. So it would be Southworth Leonard, Rhode Island Road, running from Clear Pond Road to number 25 to get ahead of the Route 79 project. So our plan was to kind of wait on that and do the Route 79 project, then come in and pave that. But seeing the Route 79 project's probably not going to start till 26, and it's going to be a 3 to 5 year project. I really can't wait now, obviously. We have Howland Road, which half of that road is deteriorating pretty fast. The other half possibly could hold on for another year or two, but I'm hoping basically to do the whole project, and the reason being, just to get ahead of it. So the longer you let the road deteriorate, the more money you're spending to resurface it. And as we all know, it's a pretty major roadway in town, well, as far as our roadways go. It's a cut through from Freetown to Woonsocket, plus you get the whole entire school complex there. So to make it a safer road. So that's the main ones right now that I should be able to have done before school starts.
How is Freetown Street overall?
Freetown Street?
Yeah.
Is beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah, that's, we fixed all the
Smooth as
drainage. There was a
glass.
big drainage issue at the end of that road. I mean,
Yeah.
there's still water there, but we don't have any of the icing, we used to have to salt, I don't know if anybody probably remembers that, they used to have to salt that every single morning.
Yeah.
You don't
Spin
have to do
out.
that anymore.
Morning spin out, yeah.
So we came in and we reconstructed that section of roadway, and then we used the cold-in-place recycling, which they basically recycle the road, put it back down, and then we put an overlay over the top of it. And that's actually one of the ones we got a NAPRA award for quality and construction on. Yeah, so that road's in really good shape.
Yeah. It may or may not, with the potential project going in there, be impacted, so.
Yeah, so yeah, that's a kind of a different conversation, I guess,
Yeah.
but you may want to think of, like, so we talk about like streetlights at like Bridge Street, like I can only imagine what the end of Freetown at County Road is going to look like if a project like that came
Yeah,
in.
yep.
Same
Plus,
thing at the school area there.
Right,
Not
where the
not that I'm
road is
trying to push for a
in.
streetlight by any means, I'm just saying, like, there's going to
Yeah.
be, that's probably a different
Yeah.
conversation.
yeah,
for a
and,
different
you know, again, a
Right.
conversation for a different day, but, you know, should the project go forward with the construction and everything, that's a great road, and now we're gonna have construction vehicles on
Yeah.
it, and, you know, we just, I don't wanna wreck the road.
I know that in the morning and in the afternoon, the traffic in that, both sections, both at Freetown and County and then Freetown and Howland, are pretty intense as far as Lakeville
Yeah.
traffic goes.
Kids.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's mostly kids, yeah. And now, you know, it's gonna be a big addition to that.
I just want to mention for the people at home, because it's the number one question I get about
That's why I'm
roads,
bringing it up.
that we don't own County Road.
No, we do not own County Road, so I'm glad you brought that up.
Everyone,
I get
like,
calls
everyone's
on
like, you
County
know what you
Road.
should tell them to do? And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, that's the state.
That's the state's road.
We get calls on County Road almost daily. I'd
Yep.
say. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're really upset with us. I'm
Yes.
like, well, I don't, you know, we'll call.
I got calls when I left the town with people calling me and they're very upset.
I mean, there has been times in the past where we have filled potholes on that, on County Road for the police.
Yes.
When, if they call and, you know, it's a big hazard and they're not, no one's responding, but we try not to make a habit of that for the simple
Yeah,
reason
but
that
for
we
those at
really don't
home,
want to be
It's
invested.
not our road.
Yep.
State roads.
Put a sign on it.
I know. Maintained by the state. Call them and thank them.
So it looks like that some of your accomplishments here are construction of the new DPW administrative building. So if anybody has not been there, which I don't know if FinCom has had an opportunity to stop in, I highly recommend it. You know, the only charge is 50 cents a tour, but it's really worth it. And you will serve coffee if you'd like it. So,
No, it looks,
but it's really, it's wonderful over there.
Frank, when will that be like fully, is there anything still waiting to be finished off or?
There's a few things, so there's some landscaping stuff, there's the trim work on the outside around the doorways and the porches that, they're gonna be coming back to do it, but to paint them, the bulkhead needs to get painted to match the building. But they're aware of it all and they'll be here probably anytime this month.
Yeah, I would love to have something where we have host an event there to really.
The functionality of the addition on there with the current building was incorporated. It really is a nice flow, and it gives, you know, the crew something to feel, you know, proud of when they're over there. And it's really just.
Yeah, it's got great kitchen space, it's got a working bathroom, just like always good.
It's got more than one
I know,
bathroom.
more than one bathroom. It's just.
Check it out, just really, just stop in,
Space.
say hey. So.
Jen loves giving tours, so.
Yes, she does. She's so
the
proud.
one.
She is so proud of it.
And she deserves it.
Yes.
So you've also completed the resurfacing, which we mentioned earlier, the Pickens Street, Kingman Street, South Pickens, and South Kingman. Received a National Asphalt Paving Association, which is the NAPRA Award for the quality and construction for Pickens Street, South Pickens, South Kingman Street, and the corridor resurfacing project. So again, Franklin, I appreciate, and I'm speaking for everybody too, you know, the work that you and your team do to allow us to travel, you know, from A to B.
Yeah, I give a lot of credit to my guys especially for that, because there's a lot of work that me and Jim Lucas, my deputy, put into kind of how we approach all these projects. None of these projects are simple resurfacing. There's a lot of work that goes in ahead by DPW crew, and then there's a lot of finished work that comes in afterwards. And all of that is what's encompassed when we're getting these awards. it's not just the pavement, which PJ Keating, who's our Sarsage contract, does a fantastic job, and they're really good to work with. But it's definitely, kudos to my guys for all the work they do ahead of it and coming in behind it.
If I may, Madam Chair, the other things that they do that a lot of people don't even realize is maintenance of all 32 cemeteries in town. The entire trail park at Betty's Neck, which I didn't even know until I talked to Frank this week. So, if we didn't have them, we wouldn't have those trails. Maintenance of all the grounds outside of the buildings. I mean, it all looks beautiful. And it's easy to think they just do roads and transfer station, but there's so much.
So much more.
So much more.
And they do not toot their own horn, so we
Nope.
need to make sure we keep tooting it for them. Yeah,
Very humble department.
Very much so.
So page 66 is the budget for the transfer station before Frank can leave.
Which I almost forgot, thank you.
All right, proposed budget for transfer station, the salary line, or I guess the personnel services lines on this one, considering it's an enterprise fund, there's a lot of, there's no enhancements here. These are all numbers I pulled from Todd as far as the, a lot of the numbers you see here, and then, as far as the salaries for the guys who work there, it's all contractual. The expense lines is more of the same. We did go up with contracted bulky waste disposal. The cost on that has continued to rise. So it's a small increase, but we've seen in the past years, 22 is, it's been over budget almost every year coming into this year, so we put that up a bit. And then the bottom two lines for the increases on that are numbers I get from Todd. Those I don't come up with. Next page for the revenues. I work closely with Todd with these numbers also. We sit down when it comes time to put these numbers together. We look at where we're at and what we're projected for the year, and try to forecast for what we're going to see in the coming year. And as we know, the recycling market and everything and the trash, everything that goes into this is so volatile right now, the ups and downs and the cost of everything continues to increase. A lot of things we were getting money for, we're no longer getting money for, we're paying to dispose of. That does go up and down also throughout the year, where sometimes you're making a small amount, sometimes you're paying a small amount. So it is difficult to track, I guess you could say.
I have one question. if anyone. A question I get a lot is, will the transfer station ever prorate the stickers? A lot of people would like to consider going for a sticker, but they're like, well, I won't wait. I'll wait until it's re-up time because, I don't want to pay the whole price for the whole year. So it's only got 2 months left on it, 3 months left on it.
Yeah.
I didn't know if we've ever looked into it.
We do begin selling them April 16th. And when you buy them in April 16th, you have it for the rest of this year and the entire year after. I do see what you're saying with
Yeah,
the
for
prorating
for
cost.
when it's coming up. Like, I didn't know if we'd
I
get
guess something
more
could
or we'd get
look
less.
into. But I mean, you're already getting half April, May, and June with your next year there. So I don't know how you would prorate it, considering we're already given 2.5 months on that. I guess it's something we could look at and talk about.
It's just a question I get a lot,
Yeah.
especially when I'm out there signing petitions and stuff
Yeah.
out of the land. They ask the same thing.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know, I think if you're buying it in April, you're getting, what, 12 to 14 months? I think that's a pretty good deal anyways.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, but it's for people that are like,
Yeah.
over in December. or
We've also
wherever.
talked about day passes, things like that. It's been talked about, so it's something worth at least discussing, I think.
Is that a Brian Day Pass?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think, they all expire at the end of June. So the only people it really should affect would be, I got rid of my pickup trash service because it got too expensive, and now I'm going to change to the landfill.
Which is a lot of people lately, I'm sure. I'm sure you're going to start picking up more. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm a frequent flyer. Just amazes me how organized and clean it is.
Yeah, the guys at the transfer station do a really great job.
Yeah.
Even when DEP comes and we have our post-closure monitoring and things like that, they always speak to the condition of our land.
It's amazing. So I just want to point out here that you received the SMRP, which is a Sustainable Materials Recovery Program grant through the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection for $4,550. What were you able to use that toward?
So we did just do a big sign overhaul, which is part, obviously so people know where things are, but it's also part of an education. So people see, what goes where, why things don't go where they're supposed to go. But typically this goes into an account that Todd has, and we don't spend much of it, but then again, there's not a whole lot there. But there's a lot we can do with it moving forward, so it may be used for projects. So this big sign project, I say it was a big sign project, it was only a couple $1,000s, but, things like that. Things that we don't use the operating budget for, or anything along those lines.
I just had one more then. Back in 2020, we were talking about getting like tap to pay and internet over at the landfill. Did that end up happening?
So, I believe they just recently, hooked up the internet there. They got a new laptop, all that. We never pursued what the system that was going in place, only because it was so complex.
Yeah, Square will probably.
Yeah, so, but they are taking credit, you can pay with credit cards, yeah, but the tap to pay, I don't think is, that whole system we had looked at. It's not a bad idea, but unfortunately we have, not to speak on the guys there, but they're, our part-timers are like retired guys, or like a lot of it was complex as far as like, using the system in that way. But, yeah.
Do you know what funds were used to pay for that? Did that just come out of the IT budget?
I think that just came out of the IT budget. That was running the fiber, when they ran fiber all over, to all, animal control is another one they did.
Was that part of the $100,000 that we got from Mike Rodrigues in 2020, Brian, for running fiber? Because that was what, it was specifically written for IT infrastructure, and I had wrote it for like $100,000 for IT
I can't remember if
infrastructure.
that's what ended up doing it or not, but there was definitely a plan put together to look at all the town facilities and which ones weren't on the network or not.
Yeah.
Because I know we'd also talked about
Parks.
getting fiber to the water tower for police, and it was kind of like, well, if we're already doing that, why aren't we doing the transfer station?
Right, we're right by it.
Yeah.
But I bring that up because of the Parks building.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be part of that, and it didn't look like it got done, so I didn't know if his got done.
I think Loon Pond Lodge did, but not the others around it.
Thanks, Frank.
You're welcome.
Madam Chairman, I have another question. I'd like to know, do you know how many, you sell at the transfer station? Like, how many do you sell a year?
How many
The passes?
stickers?
Yeah.
It's a great question. I don't have the answer.
Jen?
And me and Jen talk about it pretty often too. I don't want to just throw out a number.
Okay.
I think it was close to a quarter to a third of the population compared to the household. I can get that number though and email it out. I should know that, but I don't know that off the top of my head.
Has there been a tolerance for raising the fees? I know they do, I
So
use
we
it.
did raise the fees last year. We raised the bag fees and the sticker fees. So we tread lightly with raising fees for the simple reason that we pick up so much stuff off the roads. Where if we don't want to price it out where then we're just disposing of it for free and the DPW's picking it up. Which if that makes any sense, but there's a lot of areas where we have a lot of dumping going on in town. I work with the police with it. I'm not saying that the people that use our transfer station are gonna do that or not. but our fees are where, most of our fees, all of our fees cover the cost of disposal. And the majority of our fees, we make a little bit of revenue on.
Okay. Am I interpreting the budget summary to show that we have a subsidy?
Yes.
Okay. That's why I was asking the question.
Yeah, so I believe we've had a subsidy since 2010 or something
Since
like that.
cardboard started falling.
Yeah, it's been a long time. I
Yeah.
know, well before I even started here, there's always been around $100,000 subsidy, even with, and we've raised, since I've been here in 6 years, I think we've raised we've raised fees twice. But with those fees being raised, you see costs of like things that you're getting rid of for 120 a ton in 1 year, going up to like 150 a ton the next
Yeah.
year. So there's like,
You
to
never catch up.
offset those costs, you know what I mean? So then we could raise the fees again, and we're seeing it with trash, we're seeing it with our household hazardous waste, so the bag trash. We've seen huge increase, almost everything across the board is just, every year just jumps up really high.
You know, just one thought too, I know when the parks were here, you know, we had mentioned that the select board would be having a discussion about, you know, what is it going to look like if we went to a department and like de-enterprised the landfill. So I know Franklin is aware that the conversation, so we started it and we're going to continue the conversation. Obviously, we're involving the finance committee, you know, in that discussion too. Because we really need to explore it, because we talked about it, and Brian brought this up, you know, for years, but we've never really got past that.
Yeah, the whole idea that it should be self-sustaining.
Right.
To be an enterprise is obviously not what's been happening. We've supplemented.
But your point is very well taken. I mean, I know areas of New York that have a huge problem with that.
Yeah.
Their fees are too high, and people, why am I going to pay to dispose of a mattress? I may as well throw it off, and then somebody else, you know, taxpayer ends up paying for it
And
anyway.
especially in our community where there's so many dock roads.
Right.
You know, it doesn't take a whole lot, right? Like, where, you know, I agree with the enterprising of the transfer station. It's a tough thing to manage, especially seeing that it's almost like running a failing business, I guess you could say, right? In that way. And then possibly by de-enterprising it, maybe we could, I don't want to go to talk about it, too many other things, but there may be other avenues where, you know, we could think about some other avenues down the road.
Yeah.
I
Good
mean,
things on the table.
in all
right?
honesty, the enterprising, the transfer station is a far easier topic than parks. So I don't know why we're tied to doing both at the same time,
We're not, yeah,
I mean,
we're not. Just,
you know,
so, yeah, we'll bring that back to
yeah.
not a
I
39
think even
agenda item
de-enterprising the
tonight,
transfer
but
station wouldn't get rid of, like, it wouldn't stop us from still looking at the revenues, right? So even
Right.
de-enterprise, me and Todd would still have to sit down and at the end of the day,
right.
look at it,
Right.
see, like, what did we bring in, how are we, you know?
Right.
We just
So
want to
it
make sure
wouldn't
we're
be,
properly supporting everything.
would still kind of
Exactly.
work in the same way, I think, just, yeah.
Yeah.
all right.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Franklin.
guys.
I'll see you around town. Oh, don't forget your cake. So, just as a quick wrap-up, I called, what did I call it? The budget wrap-up. I had asked Mr. Nunes to put together a list for us based on the enhancement discussions that took place from the department heads, so that we had it all in front of us, because we're going to have to sit down and have another discussion soon about voting the budget and, you know, which direction we're going to go. So with the enhancements that were requested, and this is the sheet right here.
Yes, I have two handouts.
So it just kind of gives the breakdown of what, you know, what we're looking at. So if you wouldn't mind explaining to what we have here.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have two handouts. On my first day, back in January, the budgets were due. And it is my understanding that department heads were told not to put enhancements in the budget. They could request enhancements, but don't put it in the budget. So the chair and I have been talking over the last week or so. She suggested that I provide a list of enhancements that were requested by department heads. And the only one that came about through the budget hearings and is not in the budget is on the back page. If you flip over, it was the salary increase request, an upgrade for the town clerk. The upgrades for the council on aging are not in the budget, but the funding is in there. So we just, if you grant it, we would just have to transfer money from one line item to another. But the town clerk upgrade is not in the budget. So these are the enhancements, again, not in the budget. On the second sheet, this is a summary of where we stand. If you look at the first column, it is the department by category. The second column is fiscal year 25 requests. That is the request of all department heads. So if you look on the last page in red, you will see we needed to adjust the budget, reduce the budget at $1,156,990. The third column is what I recommended to the Select Board and the Finance Committee. And the last column is notes as of yesterday for 24. So we'll just quickly go through them. These items, these issues we'll have to discuss at our next budget hearing. The reserve account was brought to our attention that there's a policy of $100,000. I recommended a budget of $75,000. Information technology will go out to bid. It will be an RFP. The town clerk, I mentioned the clerk upgrade. The next time we meet, I will update this. I did not put that in the column, clerk upgrade. I thought of it when we were having this budget discussion. The planning board, we heard tonight, there's talk of leave the planner there, part-time clerk, engineer, legal. Old Colony Regional, there is, from when I presented the budget in April or March, I guess I presented the budget, Old Colony's assessment was $2,702,370. Since that time, they've had budget hearings and they decreased the budget by $33,368. I'm sorry, the original budget request was $2,735,738. The new assessment is $2,702,370, a decrease of $33,368. If you go to the next page, we heard from the veterans. He is retiring. So we will talk to Lacey Marshall, and she did look up the law. I think the population may be 12 or 13,000. If you hit that number, you will have to either go regional or hire a full-time veterans agent. So I will reach out to communities and I'll get back to you with a recommendation. Risk management, liability insurance and workers' comp, we will go out to bid. We will solicit quotes based on the vote of the select board. New growth, we're estimating at $129,960. That will be certified by the Department of Revenue in August, early September. Now, if you look at the state aid number, Governor Haley, in her budget that she presented back in February, state aid for the town of Laekville was $1,999,795. The House budget that came out last week, the local aid estimate is $1,980,138. Most of that was in unrestricted local aid, and there was a few other line items that were adjusted. But the good news is that state reimbursement on smart growth, I've got this cherry sheet right here. Smart growth school reimbursement was the governor's budget and the House budget was the same. And this is a receipt. It's a revenue of $675,558. Last fiscal year, the cherry sheet was $407,808. So there was, $270,000 or so increase in smart growth revenue.
And smart growth is the 40S?
40S.
Yes.
Which is another discussion ongoing.
Yep.
So if you look, go to the last page, and if you look at the third column, from what so this is up to date with the House local aid numbers and the decrease from Old Colony, we have a surplus of $10,813.
I didn't break a sweat.
Is that with the new smart growth?
Wow.
That's with the new local aid numbers.
Okay.
That's with the Old Colony decrease. But, most likely we'll have to increase IT. We're gonna have to increase veterans. Don't know what's gonna happen with the planning. So you may need some time over the next few days to think of what you wanna do, how we're going to, as you know, talking to Todd and talking to folks in the past, you've balanced you voted on the final budget at the fall town meeting, because at that time we'll know new growth, we'll know local aid, final numbers, we'll know local receipts. So, we either can try it now, or we can kind of wait until the fall. Again, that's a discussion we can have next week, or whenever we kind of wrap up this budget.
Question for you on the smart growth. What are we attributing the bigger portion there, just because it was fully funded?
What's that?
For the smart growth numbers, because it was fully funded this time where it wasn't last
I'd
time?
assume that's the case,
Okay.
yes.
Because I know we share it with
Exactly.
another community, and I know we didn't gain that many students.
Yeah.
So it was like, I'm like, how did the math wasn't mathing?
In talking to Todd, he had said that in the past, the governors would recommend a number, and then the House or the Senate may, decrease it when it comes into conference. It was different than when we started the budget process. But thank God, it is the same. It's holding on to 675,000.
That's huge.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, we'd be at negative 200.
Yes, exactly. And, the school superintendent and the school committee from Freetown, Laekville Regional School Committee was very accommodating and made I don't know about accommodating, but we worked with them and reduced the budget, $387,000 from when we started.
Reasonable.
That's a good word.
But then, it's a team effort.
Yes.
Good point.
Sure.
So,
Chair.
a couple questions.
Yes.
Last year, I don't recall we had any enhancements. I don't recall an enhancement discussion last year. Maybe I'm not recalling correctly, but we had, during the budget hearings, we had 3 enhancements were presented, COA, and town clerk. So, just a question on the process. And now all of a sudden we're learning of these enhancements. We don't get the opportunity to question the budget department heads.
So, good question.
But we were able to, the COA, she was able to present her case. Town clerk was able to present her case.
Yeah.
So but these, they don't, so is this, what
Okay.
am I missing?
So, again, that decision of leaving enhancements was made prior to my arrival. I would have done it a little differently, but it is what it is. We had a department head meeting before the budget, during the budget process, and I told all department heads to present your enhancements, to advocate for your department. Some did, some didn't.
Well, hold on, I'm confused. The guidance was, do not include enhancements.
That decision was made prior to me.
Understand.
Yeah.
However, some presented enhancements during the budget.
And they didn't present it in written form, when they sat here.
It was
they
verbal.
advocated. Yes,
Agreed. It was verbal. They got
That
to
is correct.
state their case.
But talking with the chairwoman, she suggested that I present the enhancements, and we can have that
To
discussion.
make it equitable,
Yes.
because
Yeah, maybe, I
because the
guess
other
maybe we
ones,
could have done it at the
some people were
beginning, but
presenting
we
and
didn't.
others didn't.
I think it came down to, we didn't know they were going to.
Right,
Yes.
we didn't
Oh,
know.
that day.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that was,
Like-
they kind of.
Took it upon themselves.
Went off
Okay.
script.
It was asked forgiveness, not permission. They just kind of did it.
Okay.
Which is fine.
Yeah, but,
I think it's important to hear.
I don't think it's fair to let them. I think if they violated the guidance, they should not have been allowed to present their case for enhancement, because that puts them in an unfair advantage to all these other folks who have enhancement requests that they weren't able to argue their case.
Well, they could have presented it. Again, I told them to advocate for their department.
Right.
Oh, okay, so
As I said, we had a department head meeting. I told department heads to advocate for their department. And again, they could have advocated,
Okay.
it's not written, like I
Okay, so
said,
they all-
not written
okay,
form.
that's fine,
They
they all
could
had-
advocate. So as I said, some department heads did, some department heads
They all had
didn't.
the opportunity.
They all had the
Okay.
opportunity.
Yes,
Okay,
yeah,
I
so there was
understand.
parity there.
Yes.
Because the budget discussions were taking place December,
Yes.
preparing, so,
Yes.
and then the timing of,
Okay.
Mr. Noon's coming in and meeting with the department heads, that gave them an opportunity to say,
Sure.
okay, there are some things that we would like to see, and that's something that we would need to hear as a group.
Okay. And so the process now is we have a follow-up meeting, and we will debate these.
Well, the enhancements are not in the budget.
Oh,
so-
we,
So they
right,
said-
no, we need to debate how we.
Right, so if something came up and we looked at this and you said, oh my gosh, we're all in agreement here that, this really needs to be included in the budget.
Sure.
And then we would say, how do we fund it?
Yeah,
And I think
we
the
have to
priority,
figure out how to fund
IT is
it.
going to be an issue, obviously.
And I'm
IT is
assuming,
good.
I'm assuming that discussion is not.
I think next week, whenever we have that discussion, the board's got to decide, do we fix it now, or do we wait until the fall, at the fall
Right.
town meeting, prior to setting the tax rate? Like I said, we'll know new growth, we'll know local receipts, we'll know the bids for property liability, workers' comp, we'll know the IT bids, so.
And, I think it helps when we go to town meeting in spring, for the fiscal year, is that the numbers that we know, we can work within, those guidelines. And, no new hires, it's like we would know that going into FY '25, that what you see in the budget here this is what we have. And that if there's a need to come up down the road, where we say, oh, we have a new hire that we want to bring in, but it wasn't budgeted.
Understand, yep. Now you can transfer this.
Well,
That-
you want to
that
make sure
kind of-
that the money is there, so it could be through a transfer at a fall town meeting before the hire happens.
Yeah, you don't want to have the hire before
Right, so,
the money's there.
and that's what Mr. Nunes is saying, that there could be some non-concrete things that will be going to town, because it'll be changed, based on the bids and responses, so, right.
I was going to ask, Madam Chair, whenever we have our next meeting, could we get an update from, I guess, Todd or Mr. Nunes already on I'm going to say the name wrong, the gift account that Animal Control has? Because, some of these numbers are so small, why are we not pulling from all of the gifts that they get?
Can I speak? Can I-
Significant.
Pull
It's
in
over
from-
$100,000.
What's that?
The gift account's over $100,000 for animal control.
Including the new
Yes.
contribution?
Are they earmarked?
But that's earmarked for building, isn't it?
Except for the welfare
That's
of the
specific,
animals.
yeah.
right, for the
So you
care.
like the gift counts for animal control?
Yeah, it seems to be something we always forget to talk about. I can't remember ever talking about it the last couple of years.
Yep.
And that was one of the things I had a question about it also, because that was brought up about buying a vehicle or something. I would be curious to find out what the earmarks are and how that relates to the available funds.
I'm sorry, when you say,
Well, if they have $100,000.
you're talking about animal control?
Yeah, animal
Yes.
control, if they have $100,000,
Yes.
$50,000 was earmarked by a donor
Yes.
for X amount.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to see that breakdown.
I think if there's any other earmarks in there.
Yeah, also, I think it's important, there's a lot of people, I know of one woman in particular that, she picked up, I want to say, didn't she pick up trash around town and then donate proceeds? Or no, she passed away, people were donating money on her behalf, and I think as people donate into the animal shelter, their primary concern is not the building. That's the taxpayer's responsibility. It's the care of the animals and improving the quality of their life. So I think that's an important consideration, because I think it's going to come up at town meeting if we say we're going to spend some of that money. Because every department's going to need a car, right? Like, we can't rely, just on.
Yeah, I can get that for the our next budget meeting.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
When I do the turnovers, I write on the turnovers what the money is for. Bob was right, a lot of them come in as memorial donations. A lot come in for injured animals, and they specifically say for Sadie. Like the dog we had that, they thought they would have to amputate the leg. We got thousands of dollars for that dog, but the check specifically said for that dog. So,
But how do you can't keep track of the
I don't-
detractions from it.
well,
You
actually,
can't-
I do have, accounting has copies of the checks that would show.
That would be painful.
what it would be. It would be, but a lot of them, like I said, the memorials, I do try to reflect those on the turnover sheets.
Yeah, but they're not on their own separate line, so you can't see
Right.
when you've spent from that line specifically.
Right, we can determine some of it, and keep in mind that $50,000 is a year to 2 years out. We don't, that's what the letter said, we don't have it. So, you know, they have to go through probate, settle the trust, all that stuff, so that's just out there.
Right now, I think, so, good point, Tracy. When I said over 100,000, that includes the 50,000. I think right now it's about 65,000.
Okay.
But I'll get that exact number.
I was just going to say, I don't know if this is yet another policy, technology people, right, but when we get all these checks in, right, so
Yes,
if Sadie only
have a
needed
cash handling
$5,000
policy.
worth of care, and we got $10,000 worth of donations, what is the expectation there? I mean, I would feel like putting on the check for Sadie is like, I want to help contribute to this, but you know, if Sadie's good, then it's,
Right.
we got to help Sadie too, or whoever the next animal that comes in.
Maybe
We should
policy
add that to the
of the-
cash handling policy and the donation policy. Love
Policy.
a policy.
Leah,
Love a
policy.
good policy.
Leah's got the list of policy going. Brian's got the IT, so I think, you know, you might just catch the humor going around here. But, yeah, it just kind of picked up that way.
So that's where we stand, so I don't know what you want to do. Kind of a wrap-up meeting next week or whatever.
Yeah, I really think that it would be helpful to have a wrap-up. I don't get to see you all often, and after, you know, June, I won't get to see you until November. So I'd rather just.
July, you know you'll be seeing them in July, but we're paying bills.
Hasn't been scheduled yet, has it?
No, we have not scheduled anything. As of right now, I know I'm meeting out this week, but next week, let me coordinate, we can coordinate. We'll coordinate.
And Madam Chair, I'm still trying to schedule that executive session.
Right.
Because I wasn't in the office today, so I didn't get everybody's emails. I have a
Okay,
list
tomorrow.
going, trying
After
to
5:30.
figure it all out. So it's
Okay.
interesting.
So we can talk about that under old business.
Is the board aware of the Regional Finance Subcommittee meeting next Wednesday? And who is
Did I see something come over on that? I don't know, maybe.
Right, we have Representative FinCom, but the board, actually, we don't, you're unofficial. The only official representation we have is a board and TA. Right, Brian? Correct me if I'm wrong. I think that's the only
Sounds
official
right. It's been a
representation.
little while.
Yeah,
So
unofficial.
it's the regional FinCom?
Yes,
Okay.
Regional Subcommittee, it's next Wednesday.
Tuesday night is the capital.
Tuesday's capital, Wednesday is the regional. Maybe they haven't posted yet, maybe I think I probably got a heads up from Crystal.
I didn't see either one posted.
Can I add
I think they probably have
that
posted it,
the
yeah.
chair is saying?
They're not very good at posting that.
I would love to see all of our school committee meetings posted on our website as well as at the school. I think it's very hard for the people to find these meetings. I think for whatever reason, I remember it used to happen right when they first regionalized, but then it fell off for, I'm sure there's reasons behind it.
I did follow up on that, though.
Okay.
The school committee's primary posting is their website. So the school committee would have to vote to post in Lakeville and Freetown.
But we don't have to vote to do that. We can post what we want. They don't, if we saw their posting, we could put their posting on our calendar.
Our posting could literally be a link to their posting.
Correct.
Kind of like we did the new ones for the select board about upcoming meetings. It doesn't have to be a posting form.
Right.
Yeah.
Just-
Yeah, we don't need them to officially do anything. We need to do something in order to serve the citizens.
Right. I mean, I think we need to flush that out a little more, because
Sure.
I would hate to think that, you know, something changes on the posting, and it's on their primary post, on
But
their
if
page.
it's linked, it changes.
That's,
Just URL.
I just want to make sure that we're looking at every possible, variable that could happen, but it's a central calendar. More and more people, we're directing them as we're talking in these open meetings, check the calendar, go to the calendar. And if the information's there, it's a snapshot. If it's not there, then they're not looking for it.
Yeah, but I think the public at large will be widely served by having it on there.
On a similar topic, if I may, related to those meetings, it would be nice if, I know there's limited resources, only so many that can go around, but if we could maybe have a discussion with LakeCAM to kind of say like, hey, if you can't cover a school committee meeting or regional FinCom meeting, like, I don't think the superintendent's first budget got broadcast.
That is correct.
Can we,
Right, so like-
LakeCAM was not available, so it was not.
Which I get, there's only so many
can we
crews.
drop a static camera like we did back in the day?
I mean, that's a big meeting to not have available. I don't know what that entails, but.
Yeah.
That would be a good IT policy. Okay,
So my only point was, any meetings next week, if, obviously can't, Wednesday's out.
Tuesday, Wednesday's out.
Tuesday's capital, right.
So Tuesday, Wednesday is out. So we'll have to kind of play around with the rest of it. So, yeah, and then we're into May 2nd, which is Thursday. Yeah. I gotta throw it in there. May the 4th be with you on Saturday.
Next Thursday.
May 2nd is.
Wouldn't mind a week off. to be
May
honest.
2nd, I mean, I can't imagine that the meeting would be any more than hour and a half max. I'm thinking more like an hour.
That never happens.
It's an action item.
Make meetings shorter.
Is everybody available on the 2nd?
On the 2nd?
Thursday night.
I was gonna say, if it's a Friday, I'm free.
At 5:30?
Yeah. Darren?
Yeah, everybody good?
Yep.
So can we do the executive session after that meeting instead of scheduling another meeting just to do the
Yes.
executive session?
Yes.
Okay.
There goes an hour and a half.
There goes my no meetings next week.
Same here. Okay, so I guess we'll have to get that posted. So everybody's good next Thursday? Oh, we're still deliberating.
That's okay, you guys will be here. Yeah.
It's Friday.
Yeah, we'll have a quorum.
Yes, Friday.
Okay. All right. So I better make a note here, not to, so Thursday, the 2nd, 5:30.
Where?
I
don't think the police station will be open.
Sorry to be here. It's gonna be done.
I'll check, just like the police station's open, and if not,
Mike's gonna be
we'll
there.
have to go come here.
Okay.
6.
All right, with FinCom.
Theoretically, the lecture.
All right, any new business, old business for the select board? All right, we have a motion and a second to adjourn, and roll call, let's just keep it going.
Maybe not.
Candido, I.
Carboni, aye.
Donahue, aye.
Yeah,
Okay, I will entertain a motion to close the finance committee meeting.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Harlan Minkowski? Agreed?
Blanca, aye.
Right, aye.
Beals, aye.
Thank you.